meeting to order. I invite you to join with me in the invocation. Dear Lord, we come to you in prayer, asking for so much when we give so little. We ask that you forgive us of our sins and for the protection of loved ones. Lead us to help others in a time of need. Show us compassion for those coping with a life of uncertainty and confusion. Be with all that are suffering and show them the love of a country and a normal life which they have a hard time remembering. Lord, we pray that you provide the way to recovery for all that need your help. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Approval of the minutes. Consider approval of the minutes from the August 15th, 2022 regular and closed session meetings.
Move to approve.
Motion by Councilmember Aldridge,
Second.
second by Councilmember Dry. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to announce delegations, Joan Udi and Joyce Abernathy, Yadkin River Patriots for Constitution Week. Ladies, whichever one wants to speak.
Good evening, and thank you so much for your valuable time. I am Joe Nudie, and I'm the chapter regent for the Yadkin River Patriots. We are a local chapter of the National Society of the Daughters of the American Revolution, and we are a patriotic service organization. And one of our goals is to educate people about our country, about the Constitution. And so one of our activities is Constitution Week, which is the 17th through the 23rd of September. And we appreciate Mayor Michaels reading a proclamation for that. We also have our representative from the House, Wayne Sasser, reading from the floor of the House the proclamation, because we feel it's very important. This year, every 8th grader in Stanley County will be getting a copy of the Constitution. And we hope that that helps in their understanding of the history of this country and how important the freedoms we have. So again, we thank you for your time, and we appreciate you with the proclamation. Thank you so much.
This is a proclamation recognizing Constitution Week for 2022. Whereas September 17th, 2022 marks the 235th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention, and whereas it is fitting and proper to officially recognize this magnificent document and its anniversary, and whereas it is fitting and proper to officially recognize the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate the occasion, and whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of the proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America, designating September 17th through 23rd as Constitution Week. Now, therefore, I, Gerald R. Michael, by the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Albemarle, do hereby proclaim September the 17th through the 23rd, 2022 to be Constitution Week in Albemarle, and ask our citizens to reaffirm their ideas and the framers of the Constitution had in 1787, given under my hand on this the 16th of September. Number 5, Mr. Theodore Williams for the use of the Wiscasset Field for an open air market.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm just here for an update, if there's an update on the location for the open air market. Last I was here, I was told there may be 2 or 3 other potential ideas for the site. So I was wondering if maybe there is an update.
Mr. Williams, would you raise the microphone just a bit to speak into it? Thank you.
Sorry.
council is still under consideration of what we're going to do with that location.
Mhm.
Council, he is asking tonight for a permit or an opportunity to do an open air market on that property. What's your thoughts?
Are you asking him or are you asking council?
I'm asking council.
So I'm looking at what's on the agenda for tonight. And it's saying that you're just asking, but we don't know from what we see in front of us,
Mhm.
when, what time, and those kinds of things.
Mhm.
I know that at some point in time, I don't know, months ago, you came before us and asked, and then you decided to do the depot market.
Right.
And I know the depot market is only on Saturday
Right.
evenings.
Mhm.
Were you trying to do when are you thinking about doing it?
As soon as possible, to be honest. I need the Wisconsin location. It will certainly help to build the night market as well. My primary goal is for the day location.
Because go ahead.
Yeah, days, hours,
Oh, it'll be Saturdays and Sundays for the Wisconsin location. Chances are it'll be from 7 to about 3, 7 to 3, 7 to 4, Saturdays and Sundays.
And then you would not do the Depot Street then?
I will
Is that
do
right?
depot as well.
Excuse me?
I will do the depot as well.
Oh my. Because I've been to Depot and it's not very busy at
Right.
all. And-
Yes, since we started in July, just about every weekend it rained. We've probably had more than half of the weekends so far as rained. About 2 weekends ago, we had pretty good weather. We had probably 15 to 16 vendors. Right now, it's just really depending on the weather.
council, further questions?
Your Honor, I got a question. Mr. Williams, if I remember right, at the last, maybe the last time you were before council, have your hours changed? Because I remember at one point in time you were talking about doing it up to like 10 or 11 p.m. Is that correct? Or am I not correct?
We're doing 5 to 10 at the moment. Right now, just because the weather just hasn't been that good to us, a lot of vendors are usually leaving about 9 or so. There isn't that much going on downtown past 8 o'clock, to be honest. So with more vendors and, if the weather just gives us a chance to build a market, it will certainly grow. We have a lot of interest. It's just the weather just hasn't been that great.
So I guess my counter just question is,
Mhm.
if the vendors aren't coming to Depot,
Mhm.
why would they then come to a different location? I guess that's where I'm really, because there are a lot of things out there that I personally would like to see go on
Right.
that piece of that parcel, okay?
Mhm.
But if they're not coming to Depot, and we've been doing it now we're in your third month, I guess,
Well,
then
yeah.
I don't understand that.
Well, July, it pretty much rained every weekend.
Right.
August, for the most part, has almost been about the same. We probably had about 2 or 3 weekends since July that it hadn't rained on Saturday, or called for rain and didn't rain or whatnot, but it pretty much rained just about every weekend. We probably had about two or 3 weekends that we didn't have rain, and we had a pretty good turnout. They just need a chance to grow. Just Albemarle is a difficult, of course, because of population, but the word is spreading. We have folks coming as far as Rockingham, different areas that come to the market. We had a lady from Sanford, so the word is getting out. It's just a matter of the weather. But certainly having a day market would be more encouraging for folks to come and set up, and it would definitely help the night market. More folks, it's just more common to have a day market.
So I guess the mayor asked us if you were wanting to do this, when you were wanting to do it. You said Saturdays and Sundays. Would it be during the day then?
Yes, the Wisconsin location will be day hours from 7 a.m. to about,
7, 8 to 3.
yes.
I don't have an issue with it. I think one is that you're doing something to bring people in.
Yes.
Obviously, you've encountered things that are beyond your control.
Correct.
Going down to the West Cassett field,
Mhm.
I think we give you a greater opportunity to get this thing hopefully off the ground.
Correct.
That's what we would like to see from anybody coming in, is that
Correct.
to take the initiative to get it up and running and off the ground.
Correct.
The timeframes were good. The cleanup, is that going to be something quite different now since you're going to be spread out more? How do you look to take care of that?
The cleanup, I will definitely hire folks to take care of the cleanup to make sure that the property will remain as if we were never there.
I was going to ask you something, but I'm not going to do that. Because I got a whole different idea for that thing and I've been working on it for years. But
Okay.
I was going to ask you to give us a little bit of money in it, but that's all right. I can't
Yeah,
do that.
as long as the, our folks are happy, I'm
understand,
happy.
But I have a great affinity for that, that piece of property, and what I hope in my lifetime will come to fruition. But I don't have a problem with you doing what you're going to do. I think it's
Okay.
a good thing, and it gives you an opportunity, and hopefully people will join in and make it even bigger and more successful.
Yes, I appreciate it. Thank you.
My only comment would be that we have the farmer's market, which is open March through October on Saturday mornings. That would be less than a mile from right there. And is Joy, just yes or no? I can see you, just this or that, or does it cost, does the ADDC charge the vendors there? And is it a weekly charge that then, an annual fee, okay, to come to be a part of ADDC, to be a part of the farmer's market, okay. These folks, and there's room, is there room there?
Yes and no. Our farmers market specific for, there's preference for farmers, food vendors, limited amount for artisans.
Right.
We do have a demand for artisans to book some of the market.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Townsend, you got a question?
I guess my only question is, as you grow the day market, do you actually plan to keep, and I think you alluded to operating both of them. Now, my only concern is, I know you actually initially asked to block off both ends of Depot Street.
Yeah.
I don't want to block off roads if it's not necessary.
Right.
If you can start with one, focus on one, grow it, and leave. Because even this weekend, or not this weekend, in the next month, we got a conflict with some roads and stuff being blocked off. Only if necessary, that I would be in favor of just having everything blocked off. If it's only if it's necessary,
Right.
What would you put your emphasis on first, the day market or the night market?
Well, to answer your first comment, a couple weekends ago, Baden Brews had an event. We normally have the Albemarle cruising, which was that same weekend, as well as the night market was the same weekend. Well, just on coordination from the cruising, they hadn't set up early enough, so a lot of parking spaces were taken. So the owner actually called me and asked for a space. So, I allowed the other side that we don't use really for them to use. So far, being that we don't have enough vendors to occupy the other side, I don't block it at the moment. So we just use that one side. So if any accommodation needed, I have no problem to make everybody happy.
Further questions, comments?
Were any of the other tentative proposals for that property sent to council? They haven't, what were the other? There were a
We haven't
couple other
moved forward on
things.
anything.
Those are not far enough along.
No.
On this request, if we allow Mr. Williams to do this, is there a timetable on this? I mean, the way I'm looking in the description here, is this just forever that he's allowed to do this, or is there a
If
timetable?
council wants to do it, we need to come up with an agreement, and I would encourage you to do a month-to-month agreement.
Correct.
I mean, not a long term, because we don't know when we may want to do something with that property later down the road.
Okay.
But that's totally up to council how they want to proceed with it.
And that, what Mr. Williams and I originally spoke about with this is that, you know, understanding that council does have long-term plans for that there, and obviously we don't want to impose upon that or change those or anything, but it's just to make use of the land while it's sitting vacant basically right now. So, I mean, I think within reason, I mean, it could be a, you know, short-term kind of thing that can be extended until something else happens out there. There's also no physical infrastructure that he needs to put in for that right now. We plan on using existing parking spaces around there, around the outside, and just having people come in and then leave when they're done.
Is he planning on renting the across the street for parking? So that's not ours, it's
That's
private.
right. Yeah, absolutely. That's what we had talked about. Is he would need to speak with the adjacent property owners there to get that parking as well. But there is ample parking across the street there, as well as to the north and to the east of the property.
And about it, with the property across the street, I did speak to the owner, and he did give me approval. If necessary, we'll work something out.
So across Salisbury.
Yes.
So a safety thing just hit me in
Mhm.
the head.
Mhm.
Because I know how crazy it is on
Yep.
West Main at
Yep.
the market, at farmer's market on Saturday morning.
Yep.
I'm just throwing that out there because that's 4 lanes through there.
Absolutely. And we didn't talk about police or anything else like that yet. We hadn't gotten that far, but we did discuss putting out cones and trying to have a designated pedestrian crossing area there that would be closest to the entrance of the market as well. So it could be a direct shot. I guess if police would be needed to assist with that, that would be appropriate.
And that would have to be that would not be an on-duty officer, I would think. That would be
Off duty.
an off-duty officer. I think I personally feel like there's still a lot of specifics that need to be ironed out before we even go forward like that. Okay. Because I just thought about it, just having been at the farmer's market on Saturday. I mean, there were 2 officers down there at one point.
If council has any interest, we need to ask Mr. Williams to come back with a written proposal for council to look at. We have nothing in writing tonight. That would be the next step if council wants to proceed. We ask him to come back with a written proposal.
I was gonna come with that and say, please do that and come back. I think we need to do everything we can to ensure that you have an opportunity to be successful with it. And also indirectly sell our property. And so if you can come back with that, I think you'll find that we'll.
All right.
hopefully
Well,
agree with
I appreciate everything, and this is really what I needed. This does show, you know, the potential, and certainly I have a lot of experience in the other years in doing flea markets, so I wouldn't have any problem providing or answering every question that you guys might have. So I'll definitely take care of that.
If you'll get that back to Mr. Robinson, he can get it to our attorney, because we would want her to look at it and approve it before council would even consider it.
Thank you, sir. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well,
Appreciate it.
And I would like for you to stay, if you can stay for the rest of the meeting, just for the reason that we're going to discuss the e-scooters later
Yeah.
on.
I actually wanted to say something. I saw it here, but that's fine. I'll wait.
I would like for you to, because what came out in the newspaper today, you were involved in that.
Yes,
So I would like for you to stay.
Okay, no
Thank you
problem. I'll
very
be here.
much.
Moving on to administrative reports, consider public housing action plan and special meeting. Mr. Scott, I asked Dr. Scott to come forward tonight and give us more or less a high-level detail of his plan. And then we want to set a meeting. I think we've already decided we would do it for the 12th. But at the 12th, we need him to go into considerable depth on several items that we want to bring before to let the residents know what has occurred over there in the last few years, what will occur, and what our plans are, including the annual plan, the 5-year plan, and then what his plans are to handle the issues that we heard from. Dr. Scott?
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. City Council, I wanted to just give you a follow-up, a synopsis rather, of the steps from our Monday meeting, August 15th, 2022. And again, to reiterate the consensus for you all to attend the September 12th meeting at 6 o'clock, was well received. We're certainly happy to know that we're all going to work together to develop a plan and to hear the plan of action for public housing. Secondly, with resident concerns, that was something that was brought forward in our August 15th meeting. What I did was I put on the left the concerns that residents have regarding simple things like the mold contributing to resident illnesses, sewer problems, et cetera. And on the right, I put items that would talk about policies and procedures, things that are pretty much in-house for the community that we need to take care of and be concerned about. With that, our annual and 5-year plan, what you'll hear me talk about tonight is basically we will be talking a lot about modernization. I put in red there that mold contributing to resident illnesses and the sewer problems are our 2 major areas that we would like to make a focus on to address with our architect, Stogner Architect PA. We met for Friday before last, August 12th, for about 6 to 8 hours to come up with a comprehensive plan how to address the residents as they move out of public housing or those that are in units that are basically issues with mold and sewer problems. So with that, we've discovered that it's going to take some time to put the entire plan together. I have been working arduously with Stogner to determine cost, to determine the time schedule, and we certainly will have that together. As far as the peepholes are concerned, I know that that was something about security that the residents had concerned about. I have written a $250,000 grant. Should be hearing about that in 2 weeks, which will cover a number of the security issues with the residents, specifically the peepholes, and as well as security cameras, et cetera, that will help us move forward. Also, there are concerns about inoperable refrigerators, inoperable stoves. We have worked very hard to make sure that we find individuals who can, companies rather, that can accommodate us at a lower price of what we have usually used. Our HVAC systems, we have 3 of them currently down. To repair them will cost between $2,000 and $8,000. The $8,000 high mark is that of replacing the entire unit. And what we discovered is our warranties ran out on the units because they had not been serviced in over 6 years. Our next issue, every first Thursday of the month, there is extermination. However, that had ended, and I had to get in touch with citywide exterminators to come back on their schedule because they were still under contract. And since that time, we have had our major issue has been of bed bug concerns at $750 each time that those individuals come to take care of those bed bug concerns and issues for us.
First of all, hang tight. Is there something, Mayor, that if he mentions something, is now the time to ask or to ask or reiterate a question? For instance, the bed bug. Okay, I mean, we heard several months ago that there was an in-house piece of equipment that was purchased.
Absolutely.
And that had never been used.
Right. It has been used. It was used. It was actually the predecessors of the maintenance individuals. They used it twice, but because of their lack of training, they caused more damage than they should have with the training. However, I've done inventory on the machinery. Also, my current maintenance personnel will be trained in the next month or 2 on how to utilize the material. So we also had to go back to the company that we discovered that purchased that we purchased the machinery from. And with that company, they basically told us that hopefully the machinery is still intact to the point that it can be utilized without having to purchase new parts, that is computers and software for the machinery.
Just one question. You mentioned that citywide exterminators, they was under contract.
Yes.
But that service hadn't been rendered in a while. Had we been paying them?
Yes, they have been paid. They stopped the service because in actuality, when there was changeover with my predecessors, they stopped because no one was communicating from maintenance which apartments needed to be exterminated and to ensure that that was happening.
Just clarification. We didn't pay them for services that they didn't render.
No, they're being
Okay.
paid because they're under contract. Mhm.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Moving on to the next slide here that I have. Our plumbing issues for fiscal year 2020, we have identified that there are 10 units with existing sewage line issues. However, it looks like 10, but it's really more than that. Here's the concern. If it's one unit out of 4, they're all connected, and we don't know yet how they're going to be impacted by the collapse of the sewer. So it could actually be 10, but then again, once we get in there, send the cameras down through the plumbing, it could be all 4 of the connected units. We're not really sure about that, and won't know until actually the Stogner comes with his plumber and those individuals with their cameras to go down into those collapsed areas. How we discovered, we used a work order data and information from professional plumbers to determine that the pipes were actually collapsed. So we looked at our work orders out of 10 masts, and we discovered that our maintenance personnel had to go out several times during the week to unstop certain areas, certain pipes, and that's why we were able to determine that those pipes were either collapsed and or in a condition that needed to be repaired. Our major concern right now with all of these repairs, we've been working with the finance department to try our best to discover how we can best use our procurement process. Also with marrying together the city, the state, and HUD's policies and procedures for procurement to make sure that we address these issues in a timely manner. In the past, what has happened is we had to assign certain account numbers. We're still doing that, but there was a lag in the process because of moving the account numbers around. And I'm sure that Jacob could probably come and describe better of what we have established now. We have a greater sense of where we need to allocate our funds and how we need to spend our monies to address these particular issues out of capital funds.
Mr. Scott?
Yes, sir.
The pipes that collapsed, were they black pipe?
Cast iron?
Yeah,
Yes, they are cast iron pipes.
we'll go back with PVC.
Yes. Mhm.
And
Actually, PVC and Stogner spoke about this new type of sleeve that goes through a pipe. I forgot what he called it. It has some wonderful magical name, but it's some type of sleeve that he can run through a pipe, and it actually, just like a sock, but it hardens after some time. His concern is if the pipes are collapsed and one is here and there, it won't know to go down or up or sideways to that particular pipe to address the issue. And we won't know that again until we get our cameras running through the actual pipes to see what the issues are.
So before you go forward, you
Mhm.
make it the slide before this one. You have 4, not that one, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
You have 4 down there at the bottom. 4 apartments.
Yes.
407, 409, 11, and 13. Now slide to the next one. Only one of those is on both of those.
Yes, actually, this at the bottom here, this is a description to say, like apartments 407, 409, 411, and 413 are the ones that are connected. Even though apartment 411 is the one that has the sewage literally running out of it, we won't know until we get in there that
I
all
got
of them may be
Okay, that's the
impacted.
example. That is the example.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So there's possibility. Yeah, I don't even want to start counting.
Yes,
Possibility.
yes, absolutely. So again, we're working with our procurement process to ensure that we are addressing these issues quickly, even when we talk about vacancy turnaround, and we'll get into that a little bit later on as we move forward. I think there's a correction, apartments 411 Griggs, 456 Griggs, and 1507, that should be Inger, have sewage running out of the apartments. Those are the ones that we will address first. Once Stogner takes care of paperwork, we get our scope of work and we move forward.
And are these at the moment?
These are vacated at the moment,
11,
except,
56, and 07 are all vacated.
I'm sorry?
Those 3.
Yes, these 3, 411, 456, and 1507 are. We have one that is not vacated at this time.
And I'm going to be the devil.
That's okay.
And why is that?
because we don't have anywhere to move this particular family. We were waiting on our burn units to be completed so that we could move that family across the street into a unit that's available. However, the burn units are not completed as of yet because the punch list has not been completed by DWA.
What's the ETA on those burn units being repaired?
They said to me that it should be in the next week. I talked to them today. Okay, so for modernization, our fiscal year 2020, we actually right now have 24 units offline, 24 offline, 4 inclusive of the burn units to complete the punch list, and 4 are ready to be placed back online at the moment. Our current vacancy turnaround by average has cost us between $8,000 and $12,000. I think we are past just adding lipstick. I think we need a little bit of Botox for our units. So with that, we're doing mold testing and abatement because of the cast iron pipes. The cast iron pipes have been leaking over some time. We don't really have problems with the cast iron pipes when we're talking about the vertical ones. It's the horizontal pipes that we're having issue with because over time, acid has been used to clear them, and that acid sits there if you don't completely flush them out, and it's just continuous wear and tear of those particular pipes, which will leak into the walls, et cetera, and cause mold behind the sheetrock. So we're doing mold testing and abatement. We have flooring concerns. We want to go from a VCT flooring over to what they call the click flooring that looks like the wood type flooring. That we've discovered that is much cheaper and much more durable than the VCT flooring.
That would be LVT.
LVT, exactly. Thank you so much.
Is that what, when some of us went over to look at the property, we were told that one was in it and then taken out and put something else in it?
Yes, the LVT, correct. LVT was in it originally, and we had ordered that. But before I got there, someone had gone and changed back to the VCT, which is the tile. Our issue with the tile was we would clean up, we would wax the floors, but when residents, by the time they moved in, basically the floors looked like they had not been redone. And that was due, of course, to the lack of inspections. So that has changed because on Thursday and Friday of last week, I individually did 200 inspections myself to make sure that things were in order. Sheetrock issues. Our sheetrock issues are the moisture from the pipes leaking. Replacement of ceiling supports. We have second floors that are waving because of the actual boards that have settled more. So we're trying our best to address those as well. And again, our current cost for vacancy turnaround is between $8,000 and $12,000. And we're trying to work to make sure that we do the right thing with that amount of money. We're patching holes in the walls. We're painting. There's a number of bathroom repairs that need to be done. Water heater replacements. We have gone and did research. Most of our water heaters have not been replaced in the last 5 to 10 years. They're blue and white. We do know that the new ones are gray. We do have several that are gray, but most of them have not been replaced. And because they were sat on a cement floor, they weren't put inside of some kind of drain pan. The moisture, of course, caused the bottoms of the hot water heaters to rust, and that's what we're running into now. Also, replacing appliances, the actual cleaning of the apartments and removal of exhaust fans, the old exhaust fans where you would turn them on the wall, and the ceiling had the exhaust fans. You open all the windows and the air would come through. That's an old way of I guess, moving air back in the day, I should say. But we're having to remove those because the weight of them now is causing some of the ceilings to warp, and we're having to remove those.
These are in the bathrooms?
No, sir. These are actually in the hallways or in the living room.
Attic fan kind of
flats.
thing?
Attic fans,
Okay.
like attic
All right.
fans.
That's totally.
Yeah.
But they do have exhaust fans in the bathroom.
Yes, they do have exhaust fans. We're having to address those as well, but
Okay.
that's something that is not a major emergency at the moment. So our annual and 5-year plan, it says that we want to address 20 apartments and every year 20 apartments after that each year. So the issue with that, according to Stogner, is we want to be able to refurbish apartments and modernize them between $3,000 and $5,000 as opposed to $8,000 and $12,000. So we have to go through and identify the most important parts where we will address the health and safety or not risk the health and safety of our residents. So if we can bring that amount down, we want to be able to make it through to June of 2023 safely without going in the red there. Our resident concerns. These are quick fixes. Our policies and procedures are not being enforced. We have our ACOP ahead of us. We have read it. We have gone through it. The residents do know about the ACOP because they're reminded of the specific changes that have been made so that we can enforce those. Not holding regular resident council meetings. That stopped after my resident services person retired, Bill Baldwin. We stopped for 2 months so that we could get him, get the information and get things rolling back with our resident council so that they would know that they had a viable part and could operate without having a leader as far as the resident services person is concerned. They are back up and running right now. Our lack of response from resident complaints. For 2 to 3 months, the complaints came from us not having maintenance personnel. Our maintenance personnel were transferred to other departments, and it was very difficult to get maintenance personnel hired. However, Eric Alsbrook, he took over and he handled the majority of the concerns as far as work orders are concerned, and was able to address those in a timely manner all by himself. As far as the lack of information regarding the annual plan and 5-year plan, these are the specific dates where I had meetings and times where residents were invited to attend, and the information was placed out among the residents. Of course, a lot of them did not come, but the word of mouth got around that there were specific changes. So that was a complaint that we wanted to address.
Dr. Scott, if you don't mind me asking, on those meeting sessions you had on the 16th, the 12th, and 10th, approximately how many residents did you have at each meeting?
We had, on the 16th, we had 2 at 10 o'clock, and we had 4 at 6 o'clock. After we had advertised and put information out to the residents, like I said, 2 at 10 o'clock and 4 at 6 o'clock. On April 12th, we had about 12, and on May 10th, we had about 15 that attended these meetings.
Thank you.
Okay. As far as safety and security, I've met with Chief B. Of course, thank you, Chief B, for all the help that you've given me. I didn't want to mess up his name. I just called him Chief B, so that we could make sure that we address the issues with the residents. Because of manpower, I know that he is very busy, but we do have a plan. We communicate often to ensure that we can address the plan. He wants to be around when the kids get off the bus, and I think that's a great time for him to be visible. And also, we're planning events that we can come together to have the police officers there in the community to get to know the residents, and the residents to get to know the police officers. We're working on that right now. The residents' fear of speaking about issues. I'm not one that will bring information unless I know what I'm talking about. These individuals, I asked them personally what was the issue. They stated that my predecessors told them that if they came to city council, that they would be evicted. The only thing I know about that, I don't have it in writing, but that is what residents have spoken to me and told me specifically. That is something I don't want to believe, but I asked them the question to address that, and that is what they said to me. So the accountability of operations and capital funds is the concern where the money go. So the next few slides specifically will address the capital funds for 2022 through 2026. These are the funds that basically have come under my watch at the time. You can see that each year, beginning with 2022, we have a total of $724,000 that will be committed to capital funds. Also, you can see the fiscal year 2023, 24, 25, and 26. Those may increase as we move along. We're not considered a troubled housing authority. We are considered a standard housing authority. However, since we do have issues and concerns with building, that may very well, HUD may give us some grace and provide us with additional funding over the years as far as we are responsible for what we're spending now.
Is that is that the reason? It seems like that's the reason we are getting about 150,000 more this year.
Yes, yes,
There-
that is the reason. Because when I arrived there, one of the concerns in January was when I talked with HUD that we had some issues with the age. Age has a lot to do with the age of the community. We're almost 50 years old, and they looked at the schematics and said that it's time to give an additional funding and see if we can address those specific issues that they had already addressed in the prior year. So we have our capital funds, fiscal year 2021 to 2025. You can see the breakdown there between 2021 and 2025, usually the same $500,000. And at the end of 2025, we should at least have $2 to $3 million to spend to turn our units around and get them in a better condition that they're currently in. Okay, next you'll see your fiscal year 2021 through 2025 again, and the 2020 through 2024. I just wanted to present that so that you could see exactly what my predecessors had placed in those particular budgets items to address the units and capital funding.
So these are prior capital.
Yes, these are
improvements.
prior.
These
Yes,
are prior plans.
Mm-hmm. These are prior. So the specific areas for capital funds expenditures, we have 6 specific areas that I addressed when I took over in January. First was operations, administrative fees, which is a portion of staff salary to plan, supervise, and administer capital funds projects. I believe that there was a time when it was suggested that we could not use capital funds to pay salaries, but you can as long as those individuals are involved in the capital funds project, not other projects with Section 8, not just regular housing, day-to-day operations, but you can with capital funds pay individuals to supervise and administer capital funds projects. Also, the breakdown, specific areas, architectural and engineering fees. There's some concern there because if the architect is actually the engineer, it will look as if he's being paid twice. So we have to really pull down and really focus on how that is going to operate. Our emergency plan fees related to agency plan development, including the capital fund 5-year planning. We always put funds in there because we have a consultant who comes in to help us with our agency plan. And those are the fees that we generally pay $3,000 to $5,000 for this individual to help us with our ACOP, as well as our annual plan and our capital funds planning. Unit rehabilitation is a major area for our specific areas of capital fund expenditures. And then management improvement, which is the purchase, the installation, and training of upgraded computer software systems. Those are the areas that the 6 capital funds expenditures that we focus on when we start our process. However, we look at fiscal year 2020 and we look at where monies were allocated. There's those other 6 areas again. You can see the funds that have been broken down. Unit rehab, $301,000. Unit rehab again for Amherst Gardens and Elizabeth Heights, $200,000. Then we see our agency plans, our architecture and engineer fees, administration fees, and operations fees. This is from the fiscal year 2020, a short breakdown of our work activities. Same thing, next page for fiscal year 2021. We have also the 6 areas: operations, management improvements, administration, architect and engineer fees, agency plan fees. And here is the 2021 interior door replacement at Amherst Gardens was totaled at $34,500. And then your general landscaping was $99,236. I reviewed the information in my system to determine we were about to go under REACT inspection, and the $99,000 was placed there in the system so that we could address the issues with the grounds. The grounds would make sure if we passed the grounds part of the REACT inspection, we would be in good condition. The big thing is the grounds actually outweighs what happens inside of the apartment, according to REACT. So that's why our focus this year was on the grounds for housing, and we were able to pass with a 75%. I agree.
It's amazing.
I agree. So fiscal year 2022, we were awarded $724,485. Our operating expenses, $20,000. That's 2.76% of our budget. Our management improvement, that's a heavy number of $72,000 because when working with our consultant as well as the engineer, he suggested that we needed to put 9% of that budget towards management improvement because there's going to be a number of HUD policies and regulations that will be changing, and it's going to require my entire staff to do multiple training sessions. These training sessions, some will be virtual, but a number of them will cause us to have to travel, and they, of course, welcome in that budget that 9.9% of the budget. They would like for City Council to consider traveling to understand the HUD policies and regulations as well that will be changing.
I don't see a $72,000.
No.
You mentioned administrative and it says 10,000.
10,000.
Right, that was a change that's inside of my Epic system. That was a change made by HUD. That was a
So, whoa,
specific
whoa, whoa, whoa.
change.
So outside line item administration on here,
Mm-hmm.
it's now 72,000?
It is now 72,000.
And who changed that?
That was a HUD change. We had a conference with our engineer. We had a conference with our HUD field office. And again, they suggested that I go in, make that change. They made the change actually to say that there was going to be a number of reasons why we needed training because we've had turnover in our staff.
So where is that other $62,000 coming out of?
If I'll get finished
Okay.
going down the rest of the
Okay,
line, I'll
very
let
good.
you know.
Thank you.
Mhm,
Didn't
no
catch
problem.
that.
Right. So there's admin fees of 14,000, and then there's the general capital activity, which is 85% of our budget, which is $618,385 that we can move budget line items to address our specific concerns with sewage and modernization. That's for the 2022 fiscal.
And where is that on there?
It's not. It's not on there. It's actually, again, I mentioned that because these are areas that we're going to move and specifically address according to HUD and to our engineers. We sat down and met with them, and they felt that these were the best areas to move our funds for 2022 to address our current issues with housing. As you can see, there were areas for lighting lighting replacement, flooring replacement, appliance replacement. Those things can still happen. However, we want to address the sewage issues first and see what we'll have left after that to address the lighting, the flooring, and the appliance replacements.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Or Michael, do we have a comprehensive insurance program or policy for these units?
In terms of things like fire damage or,
Yeah, water damage, sewage backups. Has anybody contacted to see if that would be something that an adjuster could come out? We're paying premiums. Do we know if there's any money that we can get from the insurance company to assist us?
Right. That is something that Stogner and I sat down with our 6 to 8 hour meeting, and we talked about reaching out to our insurance company to say, or the city's insurance company, rather, to say, these are the concerns that we have. This is what's happening. Can we pull from funds to make sure that we're able to address these issues with the apartments?
Who's our agent?
on property and liability to North Carolina League of Municipalities.
I'd say we need to contact
Yes.
them as well, because it's not, as you were saying there, that what's occurred is that it has, and the only thing that may get us is the length of time
Mhm.
between the occurrence and now the realization of what's occurred.
Absolutely.
However, I think there's a way we can, if we talk with the agent before the adjuster, we could get a little bit of feedback on that regarding how to get into that conversation.
Agreed. Agreed, Councilmember Dry. That was one of the other issues that we talked with Stogner as well.
Okay.
the time component was the concern. And so with that, we will certainly reach out to the adjuster to see what can be done to provide us with additional funding perhaps.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. On the next slide, the next two slides, actually, I'm so sorry that this is as small as it is, but this is an account from Stogner of the monies, the capital funds that have been spent from 1993 all the way up to 2020. If you will review and take a look, it also says who the specific predecessor was, and it also lets you know specifically how much money was spent and what it was spent on. We do have items there as far as appliances that were purchased not too long ago, hot water heaters, et cetera. If you look down that line, you will see this is the account specifically that Stogner was responsible for and worked with the housing and my predecessors to accomplish with capital funds monies.
So I printed this off,
Mhm.
and I would like, Michael, if somebody can print that page and that, there's 2 pages like this. It's very small. I can't see it even with glasses on. So if somehow we can get a better copy of that, I would like to have it before we have our meeting next
I
Monday.
agree.
I just think that that's very important for us to have it,
Absolutely.
so that we've got to read, but I can't read that, and I don't know how to
Absolutely.
make it larger.
Right. And we tried several
That's
times
okay.
to put it on certain sheets, but it wouldn't work out
I mean, I
properly.
might
It
So.
get-
wasn't meant to be.
Magnifying glass. probably.
We don't want to know.
Inquiring minds want to know. Inquiring minds want to know. All right. So with that, if I've answered a number of the questions, hopefully for capital funds, I would like to move forward with our annual plan and focus on our waiting list and following policies and procedures through our ACOP and our current lease. Currently, we have 314 individuals on our lease. On our waiting list. We had to close our waiting list because we discovered that there are a number of deceased individuals on the waiting list, as well as individuals who've been on there for 6 to 10 years. So we need to go back and address those according to our ACOP and to make sure that we are following the preferences for admission for public housing. So that is taking some time for us to go through to purge that list, because again, we had several individuals who are deceased and individuals who we've tried to reach out to. And we later will talk about, when I come back to represent, to talk about the ACOP and addressing the lease, the waiting list, and how we would need to change verbiage inside the ACOP so we could successfully address the waiting list issues.
Your Honor, since we're here, it looks like to me for time that we ought to just address that now. If he's mentioning it right now, and we've got it right here, even though it's a new business, it's part of this whole issue. Looks like to me we ought to throw in its number.
Well, he needs to be
Twen-
able to bring it up on the screen. He may be better off to finish this and then bring that up.
Mhm.
But you can
Is-
stay up here while we're doing it, yes.
Okay.
Do you-
All right. Sorry. Let me see if I can get it on the
Are
screen.
you good at juggling different multiple
No,
screens?
no, I just, no.
Look, finish this and then you can bring up the next screen.
Okay, got it. Got it, the deal. All right. So we have, again, our waiting list. Here are the specific preferences for our waiting list. And that is the order we need to go in when we're selecting individuals to come off of the waiting list, either to come into housing or to purge our specific list. So again, you can see the 5-point system, 4-point system, 3 points, et cetera. Full-time employment, part-time student or part-time employment, reside in Stanley County, and traditional housing. Those explanations are there. Those are the stipulations or the specifics we'll need to follow to make sure that we address our waiting list and get the individuals into public housing.
Those are HUD guidelines?
Yes, sir. Those are HUD guidelines, specifically out of the ACOP.
And had they been followed?
No. If they were followed, we wouldn't have deceased individuals who've been dead at least 5 to 10 years on our list. Our focus for our annual plan, as well as our 5-year plan, of course, we want to each year refurbish apartments, 22 to 30 apartments, focusing on the sewer line systems. We know that as we address this year, those 20 apartments or so, we know that that's going to be a continuum, because we have not even touched Elizabeth Heights as of yet. Right now, we're not having major issues at Elizabeth Heights with plumbing. Our issues are in Amherst Gardens. Staff training is a major area that we will address over this year and in our 5-year plan, because HUD policies are changing even as we speak, and it's imperative for us to stay abreast of those particular changes. Rent collection is another concern. This is a major concern at this point, because after doing an audit, a personal audit in my own office, I've discovered that our rents have not been correct. They are not correct. We've recertified at least 80 individuals right now. Of the 80, only 6 of those rents were correct. And there was no documentation inside the files to determine why these particular rents were what they were. We had residents paying $223, actually should have been paying $600, and we had some paying $600 that were paying $50. So we had to go back, and we're going back now. I have about 120 more to go through to make sure that we key those properly and get the proper documentation inside of our files so that we can address and provide the correct rents with our residents.
So, Dr. Scott, I have had an agency contact me with that same question.
Mm-hmm.
That people are coming to them, residents are coming to an agency saying, we have been told that our rent $200 forever, and now it's $700, for
Right,
instance.
right.
No notification, no anything except starting September 1, this is the way it is.
No, not that we didn't notify the residents.
Okay.
This is what happened. Once we had a few residents coming in saying something's wrong with my rent, we had to go inside the files to determine how we could recalculate them. There's several documents that we need in order to effectively calculate those particular rents. And so what has happened is we get in, we look for the documentation. Documentation was not there. So we had to call the residents in, have them go to DSS and to other agencies to get documentation so that we could properly calculate the rents. HUD has a specific calculation that you have to do. There's about 4 to 6 sheets of documentation, supporting documentation for alimony, child support, SSI, et cetera, that you have to use to put in the calculator for HUD, and that actually determines if your rent goes higher or lower.
So my question is, though, today is September the 6th, okay? This has just happened in the last 10 days.
No,
That-
not the last 10 days.
Well, from an agency here in town, assist with it, and they are probably watching tonight. Okay, because I told them that I wanted to figure out what was going on.
Yes.
They are asking for help and told that they were not given any forewarning, or if they were, it was very short period of time that it was going from, say, $200 to now $700.
Right. Right. We tried everything we could. As a matter of fact, we're not charging the late fees right now. We're not charging court fees, et cetera, because we're finding more that were paying higher than they were paying their actual rent. Some that were paying $700 should have been paying $200 and $400. So we're having to credit that on. We can't go back and give them their money back.
And Dr. Scott, I got a question. You mentioned a minute ago that I think it was, if my notes are correct, it was only 6 of 80 residents were paying the proper amount of rent. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
And that's been going on for how long?
It was going on when I got here, and the rents were, the whole process is residents have to be recertified every so often. So what my resident housing manager was doing, she was certifying everybody July the 1st, all 200 residents. Well, that's not proper protocol for HUD. You're supposed to recert on the anniversary date the individual moved into public housing, which every month we will be doing recertifications. Yes,
So
sir.
I'm not that smart of a guy, definitely not that smart when it comes to math, but how does that, how could that even be possible? How does that go on without somebody at HUD or somebody going, hey, we've got somebody that's paying $700, supposed to be paying $200, vice versa? How could that even happen?
Right. I can only speak for my tenure. I'm very nosy when it comes to my job in the sense of I want to know it well. And so me going in and doing an audit caused me to find this and to determine what in the world is the issue. Why is there no documentation, number one? Because I do understand that there are 4 to 6 specific documents that have to be put into the file so that we can do a proper calculation with the HUD calculator. This was not being done. So we tried, myself and Miss Darlene Hughes, who is our Section 8 director and housing director as well, assistant housing director. We got together, we sat down, and it takes us several hours a day to address these particular rents. It takes us several hours. We just really recognized this a month and a half ago.
Thank you.
And so when did these letters go out to residents that might be paying a significant increase in rent?
What we did, we called every resident. Went to their homes. We took flyers out saying, listen, you need to call us or we're going to call you. We want you to come into the office. There could be documents that you've already turned in. Please work with us. So a month ago, that's when I started going out in the community, asking individuals to come to the office and to bring materials. We even gave them a list of the materials that they needed to bring to us as far as the paperwork is concerned.
I guess my question at this point is, I know we get a citywide audit. Public housing is not included in that citywide audit that we do every year.
It's complete. It's included in part of the annual comprehensive audit that's submitted to our auditors. Now, with an audit, they review financials and look at those pretty thoroughly, and then they spot check certain elements of the city's operations, randomly pull samples to make sure that they match up to what they're saying. They don't look at every payment, every receipt, every invoice every year. They do sampling of that. And if I said anything that's not correct, Mr. Weevil, our finance director, Ms. Herlock, our assistant finance director are here. But is that accurate?
And to their credit, they've only been around for a couple of audits. Both those two together probably have not been, probably 3.
Probably 3.
That's it. You would have better knowledge of that. But the question I think Dexter asked was, if it had been more specific, somebody should have found this.
Yeah, I don't, again, somebody in finance, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think the auditors are not going to replicate rent calculations in the HUD system to determine if somebody's being paid, if being charged the accurate amount in a HUD system.
That's correct.
They'll probably look at what somebody is being billed and make sure it matches up to the payment that's coming in, but they're not going to replicate the HUD calculation for rent.
Right. That's correct.
That's not what the auditors do.
Yes.
Yes, that is correct. And they do spot checks with us like they do every year, where this year they focus on cash receipts. So one year they'll come in, they might focus on the rents or this, that, and the other. But I'd be glad to ask them the question the last time they checked the rents and what their procedures were and any documentation they have.
I guess my biggest concern out of all this is, and I know Dr. Scott said he discovered it in the last month or 2 months or so, and as a council member, we hearing it tonight, in my opinion, or from my viewpoint, this would be considered like a state of emergency.
Yeah.
And I don't know. This is more serious than what it sounds, when it's affecting the livelihood of so many residents.
And I will complete transparency. I've been called in the last week by some residents. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I was appalled at some of the things that I heard from them before we get to tonight or next week. I was appalled because if things have been as bad as it appears that they have been, someone should have known about it. Okay. Something should have been done. We should not be here right now hearing this for the first time. And I can be quoted on that in the newspaper like I was last week. It's okay. I mean, I don't care, but.
Don't disagree with you, but let's try to keep this in a bigger circle of what's going on here. In that there's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
recognize,
Mhm.
we're going through it. And yes, this may be the first time for some of us or all of us. It doesn't make any difference. It's here today. And we have to take advantage of what's available to us to make good decisions how to move forward.
Mhm.
We can't go back to the past as much to figure out why. We already know what's going on. Let's focus on what we got to fix.
Right. Agreed.
Put our concentration there. And while I'm on that, the one thing that bothers me, and I got to go back about 10 slides, is the fear of talking that you would be expelled from public housing. What we're seeing here is fixable. The human psyche has to be massaged before you fix it.
Correct.
And we need to come out of here tonight, and the residents need to know, as far as I'm concerned, and I'll stand on the block for that, that will not happen.
Right.
We need to know.
Right.
We need to know.
Agreed.
Specifics, not blossomy stuff, but specifics.
Got it. All right. Okay. All right. Following policies and procedures, of course, I mentioned, and let me go back to the PET policy. The PET policy was important because we did change it in the ACOP. The residents were notified as well in writing and verbally about the PET policy changes. And following policies and procedures for lease terminations. I think at one time we had to get Britt involved with terminations because there were issues with that process where residents literally were not supposed to be terminated or evicted from housing. So we are making sure that those policies are in place and being followed. Family self-sufficiency program is what we're focusing on, establishing wraparound services for residents as they move toward family self-sufficiency in all areas. Community service is another area mandated by HUD that residents are to have 8 hours a month of community service, which is 96 hours a year. If they are not working, they are to be engaged in those. We are putting together events, and they can attend attend workshops, life skills workshops, housing, home ownership workshops, et cetera, to fill those 8 hours a month of community service. As far as educational components or consistency in programming across the board, I have already established and am putting into place, starting the 1st of October, our credit repair, workforce development, where we'll be focusing on CDL licensing as well as solar energy, CNA, et cetera, several classes, home ownership classes, housekeeping classes. Of course, I just mentioned life skills workshops, community efforts, which is enrichment activities for all. And we want to strengthen effective communications between housing staff and city council. And again, I'm appreciative of you all coming together and wanting to address these concerns as we bring them forward. And our proposed town hall meeting with residents at City Hall, that should be September 12th, I believe. Sorry about that mistake, at 6 o'clock.
While you're
PM.
there.
Yes, sir.
You want to do that at City Hall, because City Hall and the Waddell Center are both available. What do you prefer? I know you said it would be too small for the community room.
Perhaps we need to go to the Waddell Center. That'll be closer in
That would be
proximity.
better for your
Okay,
residents.
I will make sure.
Council, are you in agreement to go to Waddell Center?
On the 12th.
next-
Isn't it the
next
12th?
Monday night?
The 12th,
That'd be
yes.
Next Monday night.
He's got the 13th.
I'm sorry, that was
Yeah,
a
Okay.
it's the
typo.
12th.
Okay, Waddell.
When we adjourn tonight, we will adjourn to that.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So the next several pages just basically is a breakdown of what HUD expects from us, from our engineer, our original 5-year plan. Even though the 5-year plan is original, as you can tell with our fiscal year work statement for year 2, 2022, that's $578,000. That was raised, of course, because we do have funding available because of the condition of our units. So if you can see, the $578,000 has been the benchmark for all of the years as HUD allocates these funds all the way through 2025. So additionally, it gives a general description of the major work categories with the understanding that these categories can be moved, these budget line items can be moved to address our concerns and our issues. My concern for this year is, again, how we will continue to do well with vacancy turnaround and address the sewer problems as we move towards refurbishing and modernization of our specific units. So again, instead of going through every page here, it's kind of cut and dry, but again, with the understanding that these budget line items can be moved. And of course, what I'd like to do with that is anytime there's a move or discussion about something that needs to be addressed that outweighs another issue, I will, of course, bring it before council to let you weigh in and let you know, so it won't be a surprise to you when we have to request those budgets to be moved, budget line items to be moved. Any questions or further concerns?
Are you finished with this presentation?
Yes, sir, I am.
All right, let's bring up 23, and go over that.
23.
That's your public housing ACOP waiting list policy.
Let me see what that thing looks like. Let's see where it is. Owen, could you assist me with going there, please?
Go down to 23 and click on it.
Oh, 23. Oh, I can go down 23 and click. All
We
right.
can do it also.
All right, let me see.
Click
Right
on
here.
that.
Good deal.
Now, yeah, there's your attachment. You can open it up.
Did it go? Did it go? Did it go?
There you go.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you so much. Thank you, Owen. All right, so what we have here is our unit refusal when it comes to our waiting list. The current statements that are there in our ACOP suggest that applicants will be given 3 opportunities or 3 offers of a unit of appropriate size and type. Okay, so if the family should reject the 3 offers, the family's application will be moved to the bottom of the waiting list. Here's the issue with that. Because we have deceased individuals on there and other individuals that we've not been able to contact the first time around, we don't have enough addresses that will say this is where the person was last. The phone numbers change every day. We would like to change that to the applicants will be made 1 offer of a unit of appropriate size so that we can clear down our waiting list and make sure that we address those individuals who are in specific need right now. That's the only way we could do that. If we do it according to the ACOP, we will have to send out 3 letters. Each letter, we will have to wait until we get someone to speak to us from those letters, or we will have to wait at least 10 to 20 days, sometimes even 30 days for response. If we don't get the response, then we have to send out another. If we don't get another response, then we have to send out a 3rd set of letters to say that we will be removing you from the waiting list, et cetera. What's going to help us with 1 offer, that will help us to determine who these individuals are according to what we have to follow with the ACOP to say, hey, we can get you in quicker, which we can get them inside the apartments taken care of, and we can get revenue from those individuals renting those apartments.
And this is, HUD allows for 1 versus 3.
Yes,
I
they
think
left
that's
it
a
up to me to
no-brainer.
determine.
Do we want a motion?
I think when,
So,
One question, when you make them an offer, how long do they have to accept or deny?
They have 10 to 15 days, even with the first offer.
10 to 15 days?
Mhm.
Is that,
do we need to set that 10 or 15, or what do we do?
HUD said 10 to 15.
So they don't specify.
They don't specify.
And what kind of
need to specify.
notification and documentation of that notification do you do?
We specifically want to send certified letters, sending certified letters, and even we will go as far as contacting by phone if we have the phone number, or just putting the information out by word of mouth. That has worked because a lot of our residents are related to the individuals who are trying to move in.
That's all,
Sometimes we can't even get them, and that's how we found out some were deceased.
so the file is maintained, that's all documented?
Yes, yes, sir.
Further questions, comments? I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Aldridge to approve the ACOP waiting list policy change. Second by Councilmember Dry. Further discussion.
Do we want to put a specific date in there instead of just saying 10 to 15? 10 to 15 is a whole week.
I'm good with, I will put a specific date. Like, for example, if we were to send letters out on the first week, say the 15th, by the 15th, we need a specific response.
You amend your vote to include the 15th?
Motion amended.
Yes,
Riley, you good with that?
yes, sir.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Let's move to item 24, Dr. Scott.
All righty.
Consider public housing updated maintenance charges.
Did I do that right, Owen?
Go,
Okay.
go to Novus agenda.
Help me. Thank you.
Go to the top. There you go. Come down to 24.
There he is.
Oh, is Owen doing it?
He's got it.
Thought he was doing it pretty quick.
Probably this, the first one, the old maintenance. 2026. Yeah, that'd be fine.
This is.
I know that's the
Owen's
one with the
forte.
that's the actual narrative. I'm sorry.
The other one, which
Yeah,
specific.
the other one right there. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, these are the old maintenance charges that we had suggested from working with Shelby Housing Authority and Randleman Housing Authority. They are both departments of the city. And so in the one that we proposed, I don't think that's the correct one up there because mine is actually
No,
3 pages.
second page.
is
Go
it
to the
second
second
page? Let me
page,
see.
Owen.
There we go. All righty. All right. So our charges, we had proposed charges. Excuse me. When I arrived at housing in January, those were the proposed charges, and it was suggested that those particular charges were put on in 1978. Also, we went on and found that the update of the charges was in 1995 from 1978. Then we had updates January 1st of 2021, July of 2021. And this is where we worked with other departments of the city to discover what these specific maintenance charges needed to be for the next year up until 2026 because of inflation. I know that a lot of these costs look inflated, but what's happening now is once we get our rents corrected and everything is in order, we're going to need to start charging residents for things that are above wear and tear. Of course, we will be mindful of the prices, but also we want to hold the residents accountable so that they'll understand that when we put new things inside the apartment, specifically appliances, et cetera, that they will need to try to help take care of those specifics. Of course, we can waive. HUD said that we can waive some of the fees according to the condition or the particular situation with the resident. However, it was discovered that also HUD says that if you give them a list that looks somewhat expensive, that will help them become more accountable and responsible for taking care of their apartment and the appliances, et cetera, in their apartment. So these are the proposed to be put in place effective 10/1/2022.
So just so I understand what's in front of us, these are what they were, what's in blue,
Mm-hmm.
like sink basket strainer, 420. That's as of when?
That was as of 1978 that I was told. We did research and we found a piece of paper that wasn't put together. It was actually in handwriting. That was 1978 maintenance charges.
So these in the blue are 1978?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Dang, that was pretty expensive for them then.
Your dollar went just a tad bit further.
Council have any questions?
I think this is a good thing to lay it out and say, you know, that if you take care of it, you get rewarded.
Right.
If you don't take care of it, you got to pay the piper.
Right.
And I don't see any other way to have accountability as well as substantiate someone's honesty and taking care of something.
Right.
And maybe that would be the predominant thought process that will eventually come out of this thing.
Right. Hope so.
If we take care of it, we're going to save some money.
Right. Exactly.
Is this not a HUD requirement that this be revised periodically? or-
It is, and basically, when we corresponded with the HUD officials, especially the field team in Greensboro, they suggested that we go ahead because of inflation, knowing that if we had to replace some of these things, it would not cost us so much to actually replace and pull from our operations budget to the point of depletion. Because if you're talking 200 units and we're talking refrigerators and hot water heaters, et cetera, that have been abused, that's going to cost a huge amount of money that we may not be able to take out of capital funds.
It just seems a little strange to me that if this is required to be current, updated periodically, and the rents, should be accurate, and HUD seem to be auditing us constantly. They hadn't caught any of this.
They didn't.
That this has not been noted anywhere by HUD when they come in. That's just a comment. It's just seems a little.
For their biennial when they come in. I know.
Further comments?
I may be naive to the cost of fire extinguishers, but $103 for a fire extinguisher, that sound about right? That sound kind of high to me. To the firemen, does that sound about right? That sound,
A 5 pound one at that. 5 pounds.
that's the only one that seemed abnormal to me.
Okay, so do you want me to adjust that one, or?
Fire chief, what does one cost? Mr. Townsend, you have a suggestion? So that includes labor?
It
Or
does.
the labor
I
bill
think it
separate?
does include labor because, I remember having that conversation. It does include labor.
But it has labor cost at the top, though.
Right, it
Labor
does.
cost on this particular thing is a separate issue.
Yeah, so maybe that was included, the minimum hourly labor charge, probably putting it up, I'm sure.
I'll entertain a motion. Council, will you wish to approve the housing updated maintenance charges?
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Hall,
So,
second by Councilmember Whitley. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Those opposed?
No.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Moving back to item number 7, consider the ARPA Strategic Work Group recommendations for Tranche 2. Mr. Ferris.
So as everyone's aware, we have a strategic work group that makes recommendations to this body regarding the ARPA funds. And that group consists of Mayor Pro Tem Hall, Councilman Whitley, myself, Parks and Recreation Director Lisa Kaiser, Fire Chief Pierre Bruton, Police Chief Jason Bullhorst, and HR Director Dana Cheney. Our second tranche is equal to our first and has $2.588 million. So the group recently met to discuss potential uses and has some recommendations to make. One recommendation are some safety and security improvements within this building, City Hall. We've made safety and security improvements around the city, but it's kind of amazing how fast some standards and customary practices change. And there are a couple of areas that have been identified where safety and security improvements can be made, and that's in the city clerk's workspace, also the planning, community development, administrative assistance workspace, as well as providing an alternative access out of that area, and then in public utilities administration. There's also some needs for some security cameras at the Niven Center and Waldale Center and the Ant. And it's estimated that those costs are $140,000. Of course, these are all figures to the best of our abilities. They've not been formally bid or quoted, but working with architects and other entities to try to get some figures. That's the best of our knowledge right now, about $140,000. The next set of recommendations, thank you, Owen. You can scroll. Yeah, the alleyway project, that project has been bid. Those total project cost came in below, just slightly below what is remaining in the project budget. However, we know there are several items that we are going to take care of in-house, and so there is a cost to that as well. So if we do not want to make any adjustments or alterations to the alleyway projects, about $100,000 is what we're estimating to complete the project with all elements, including those that will be performed in-house.
So, Mr. Ferris, I just, for clarification and again, for transparency for council, at the meeting, there was a discussion of the committee about the stage. And then you followed up to the committee, and I think that council needs to know what that is and what the finding is there,
Right.
and how much more.
The stage was not part of the bid amount, so it is not in that figure.
And how much more would that take? Because and again, I believed when we saw the original drawings and the update of what the alleyway project was going to be, that was going to be one of the things. So about how much more?
Okay, now that I don't know, but that was one of the asks in terms of what the stage would cost. I don't recall that. I know that I did verify that the stage was not in this price, so I don't know what a portable stage would
If you look
cost.
online, it all depends on the size. You can buy one from anywhere from 15 roughly to over 40. It all depends on what size and what you want on it.
Well, I just guess we look back, Ronnie, to what we were shown, on the original drawing or the updated drawing, whatever that was, that would fit that area and be able to be moved. And I'm not sure what the dimensions of that was.
So there is some funding left somewhat in reserve at the end. So if we need to add the stage, there's some ability to do that. So we go through, and Ellen, if you hit the next slide, please. And that's the radio purchase. Again, the ARPA work group recommended the radio purchase for a majority public safety. There are some interoperability needs with a small amount of radios needed throughout the rest of the city. So all departments can communicate in emergency situations. And the ARPA work group did reaffirm that they'd like to move forward still with that recommendation still. And the updated quote as of probably 3 weeks ago was $1,442,000. So I did put in there what you'd be looking at if you finance through Motorola in annual principal and interest. So you see over a 5-year period, 5 years at 309. So you can see the difference between the purchase outright of what it costs now versus a 5-year lease purchase. Next slide, please, Owen. And then finally, there was, when you factor in those first 3 items and add that total cost up and subtract it from the ARPA funding that we've received in this tranche, there is $900,000 remaining. So the ARPA work group left it that money could be used for 2 different items, and whichever, and amounts to be determined later in terms of how much each activity. Those 2 activities are paving or addressing additional annual street maintenance repair. So have a larger project that could be done on top of what we budget annually. And secondly, an amount to be held in reserve to apply for grants for stormwater and maybe also be used as matching grants for stormwater projects. So that is the recommendation of the ARPA work group.
Council comments?
I have some questions and some comments. Michael, will you tell us, please, the current radios that we have right now, when were those purchased?
If somebody can help me out, but at best of my recollection, I'm probably not going to be off by more than a year, probably 2013,
Okay,
that ballpark.
okay.
Does any,
Somewhere 213,
That sound-
214, okay.
Okay.
Okay. Let me preface that I completely understand the need for the radios and think we do need to purchase the radios. But again, I'm not feeling that this is what the intent of these funds were for. So, some of the information that's been given to us from the league, one of the recommending spending criterias for this money is a one-time expense. These radios, it appears, are not going to be one-time expenses. It looks like we're going to buy them every 8 or 9 years because Motorola is going to say they're out of date and we've got to get new ones. That is not the intent for this kind of money that we're getting from the federal government. One-time expense. So in the update from the city manager that was dated August 26th that council received, his first grouping on here is about water and sewer funding applications, okay? For those of you who are watching, we have a water line that goes from 52 basically to the lake, for lack of a better description, okay? That thing's probably over 100 years old. We need to look at a bigger picture and how we're going to spend that money, because this is a one-time, we're not going to get this money again. And we had initially, back when those radios were needed, they were coming out of general fund. They, in my opinion, we need to continue to look at the general fund money, use this larger 1.4, I think is what the radios, 1.4, and use that. We have got to look to the future on these water lines. We submitted for grant money or we were denied. We have got to look for these bigger pictures than radios. I'm not saying not do the radios. I'm saying the general funds that's where that needs to go. We got to look at bigger projects for this funding. And information from the league tells us that just for water alone, okay, 74 million approved in state funding revolving funds, but requested was 257 million. So the need is there for these water updates. And I would like to have LKC come and talk to us at the next meeting. And I'd like to hear what they're saying or guessing what this cost would be for any of these items that we had tried to get, and we didn't get it.
If I remember correctly, it was well above $20 million for the line you're talking about.
I'm sure it is, but we have got to start somewhere, and 1.4 would sure be a nice way to start to approach that as a bigger picture. That is a one-time expense. When we replace some of these water lines, that's a one-time expense. We're going to buy these radios again. You watch, in about 8 years, we're going to need the radios again, and that money, in 50 years, when people look back at what this council did with all that money, we bought radios. We got to look at a bigger picture. We have got to look down the road.
And I'll just, again, for transparency purposes, that's my feeling as well, Martha. It's what I said at the committee meeting. And I mean, we got to have them. I mean, it's a safety issue, but we had to have them a year ago. We had to have them 3 years ago, and we'll have to have them in another year. They are a reoccurring expense. They are something that needs to come out of our general fund. And I appreciate Michael giving us what it looks like. You know, we could say $309,000, and for the listening public, $309,000 is about 3 pennies, give or take, 2 to 3 pennies. But I agree and have agreed since we were told about this holy manna of $5 million that we were getting. We need to use it in a way that folks, when we're all dead and gone, will be happy that we spent that money. We were being smart doing it. So, am I against the radios? Heck no. We need them. We needed them in this current year, as I understand it. Because when the chiefs came to us back last fall, we were needing them like right now. So, I mean, I was thinking they were going to be in this current year budget with the general fund, but I agree completely. So,
I guess my only comment about paying them out of the general fund, what would you think the interest rates would be now? You were a banker, Ms. Hughes.
I deal in mortgages, so you can't go off of that. Mortgage rates are not going to be the rates that the bank's going to lend money on.
They're going up.
Yeah.
I guess my thing is there where,
Got something.
okay, here comes Mr. Weevil.
Just from memory on the equipment loan that we went out for recently, UR came in at just around 2%, but that's been a couple of months ago, and we are in a rising rate environment.
And I'm not saying, obviously we need the radios. Totally agree with that. But I think as a council, we have got to look at bigger projects, bigger picture. And these radios are not a one-time purchase. We're going to buy these things in another 8 or 10 years. That's not what this money was designed for. This money was given to municipalities to do those big projects that there's no way we will ever have the money we need. So any money that we can get in this capacity, that's where we need to be putting this kind of money, not on something that we're going to have to buy over and over again. I know I sound like a broken record, but in 50 years, someone's going to go look back at what we spent our money on.
I guess I look at the cheapest way is the way I look at it. What's going to be the cheapest way to do it? The cheapest way to do it is going to be use the AARP for the radios and then do the financing for the water infrastructures through the state's revolving loan, which is usually 1% or sometimes even less. I'm looking at the overall dollar, and it's cheaper to do it that way than
I'm looking at the fact that there's not the money there to get to do some of these projects. There's requested $257 million requested and $74 million approved.
So everybody's got the same problem.
Everybody's got the same problem.
Right.
So, let's be a little forward thinking. And it says here, the league encourages its members to consider investment in water and wastewater infrastructure. I know you don't see that stuff, folks, but that's falling apart. It's falling apart underneath our feet. We have got to look ahead. We've got to look at the bigger picture. And here's my question. What would it hurt to have LKC come to speak to us and just tell us what is the condition of these water lines and how much money we're looking at spending? We don't have to make this decision until December of 2024. We don't have to make that decision tonight. What's wrong with getting some information from LKC and hear what they have to say about these? These are big projects. And let them tell me, hey, you know what? Don't worry about it. You can get federal money or you can get state money. Fine. But I think they're going to tell us anything that we can put towards this, we're going to need it.
I have no problem with waiting. That's not a problem. But if I'd have known you was going to ask that question, we got that from LKC when they made a presentation on the grants. They gave us some round numbers. So we can get that back again without.
But it might be, I would like to have them here so I can say to them, if I had 1.4 million, because that's what I've got. If I don't buy the radios, that's what I'm looking at, just an estimate. How does that impact what we're looking at on any of these projects? Tell me bigger picture. How is that going to help me?
Well, if you're talking about using these funds for highest impact and you're looking at using them for water lines and sewer lines, it'd be a drop in the bucket on those. I mean, I think we just have.
It's a drop. We don't have a drop right now.
I think we just have had a disagreement for a few months now on how to pay for these. The radios are a huge impact on the safety of our employees.
Not disputing.
And it is a big hole in our budget. The thing I keep going back to is we were at the League of Municipalities meeting in Wilmington, and some of the sessions were on the ARPA funding, and they were panel discussions. One was Durham, and there were some large cities and small cities. And the larger cities were, to large part, putting a lot of their money with nonprofits to let the nonprofits administer it. The smaller cities were not doing that, the ones our size and around this size. The thing I kept hearing was, don't invent something new. Use it to plug holes in your budget. Use it to do things that you've wanted to do that you haven't been able to do within reason, like the alleyway project. I'm glad to see some of it going toward that because we've been talking about it for a pretty good while.
Absolutely. I think the
The-
Alloway project's a good
the
use. You'll
discussion-
see that in 50 years.
Yeah, the discussion around the stormwater was to, and once again, you put a portion of that money towards stormwater capital projects, it's still a drop in the bucket. But if I understand, we didn't know enough about the grants that were going to be available. There, if I remember hearing right, some of the infrastructure grants and some of those may require a match. So my thinking was, reserve a portion of that for stormwater, but use it to match grants for capital projects and that kind of thing to magnify it, not use it for operating, which doesn't really help the council as far as deciding when to start the fee and start the program. The streets, a few $100,000, that's still not a lot of money, but we could attack some low-hanging fruit there. The radios, the whole time, it just kind of popped the bubble when we first heard we have to buy these, because I was thinking we would have that money available. And my personal preference is to fund it with ARPA money, as much as I don't like that. But I would rather do that than fund it with general fund and cut 300,000 plus out of regular operating. It's just a matter of preference. I would feel less pain, I think, doing it lump sum like this and pulling the Band-Aid off and getting it over with than I would paying on it for 5 years out of a regular operating money. And that's just my.
Well,
My
I
preference.
don't think, and my opinion is the fact that this money was given to us for large projects that we would not be able to do. We decided to do these radios before we got 1 penny of this, and it was coming out of general fund. That's what we had decided. It was coming out of general fund when we knew we had to buy these radios. Now we get some money, and all of a sudden we're slowly just eating away at that money, and 1.4 million to do something in the water and sewer line, to me, has much more bigger impact than buying radios that in 8 years, they're not going to be working again. We're going to be right back sitting here. Another council is going to be sitting up here doing the same exact thing. And the league says here, use it for one-time expenses. That's not a one-time expense. That is not a one-time expense. And I don't understand, if we were going to take it out of general fund when we did it, why are we not doing that now?
But actually, we already had the notification of the ARP fund. We already had the first tranche.
Well, we didn't
And we
talk
were-
about the radios at that point.
We didn't know about them until the end of last year, first of this year.
Right.
So we were already planning on stuff to do with this, and then that dropped. The radios dropped.
And in the past, they've come out of general fund.
In the
In the
past,
past, they've come out of general
just-
fund, and we have prepared for them. We have known that within our capital, it's a capital expense. I mean, it is an expense that we have to do, and it's something that we have planned for. This is not new. The ones that we bought in 2012 or 13 or whenever we bought them were not the first ones. I mean, and these won't be the last ones. So it is a capital fund out of general fund that we've used every other time. Again, I thought they were going to be in this year's budget under a general fund moving forward, and we could have probably gotten them instead of 1.4, it probably could have been 1.3 or something, Chief. I can't remember what it was then, maybe even less than that this time last year, but.
Martha, do I understand you to say that, and correct me if I'm wrong here, about your initial statement, running water from Albemarle down to the lake, that 100-year-old pipe? Yes?
Yes. So we asked LKC, it was in the city manager's report to us. So we asked LKC, okay, so we've got a section of the water line on Highway 52, the sludge dewatering system, and the raw water line replacement from Old Whitney to the US 52 plant. And I think, Mayor, you told me that's 100 years old, Benton.
Yeah, coming from Old Whitney.
I'm sorry.
When you
Oh,
say the
I'm
lake,
sorry. Yeah.
Because the county's already run water
So-
down there.
That's 100 years old. We're living on the edge. I mean, that thing, I don't know. And I'm just saying, there's our radios, and then we're going to need we're going to need to do something with this. And I'm not saying, we can't pay for all of this. I know that. But wouldn't it be nice to say to the community, you know what? Out of that money that we got, we've contributed over $1 million to ensure that we continue to get good, safe, clean water to our citizens.
Well, another thing just occurred is the radios come out of general fund, which is the most stressed, and water, sewer, and all that are self-supporting funds.
They should be
They
self-supporting.
should be.
But,
Well,
but
and I checked today, and I checked because of a Facebook post I saw, but that's another point. They, if I'm doing it right, looking on the school government's
dashboard,
webpage dashboard, we're still the bottom 10% of the state on water and sewer.
which is good and which is not good, because what are we doing if we
right.
don't have a fund balance in that? And that's another day for another discussion, that we have got to be able to charge the rate that we need to charge to be able to fix the things and keep things going. And our predecessors have not done that. And I've been on that. I mean, I've been one of those predecessors, and we've not done that because they were afraid to change rates.
Mr. Ferris?
If I can interject something that might help move things along or help with where decisions and when they can be made. This was brought tonight because this is what was asked of the ARPA committee back in maybe the first meeting in August. That's why it's on here tonight. So this is the work group's recommendation. But Councilmember Hughes mentioned something about LKC. They are planning to be here either, I believe it's the next meeting anyway, to discuss an opportunity to apply for funding again for the wastewater treatment plant project. We've already been awarded a state revolving loan, but since that time, our designation and other things have changed, what they believe makes it more favorable. So they're going to be back discussing that. They also, I think, have the opportunity to discuss some of these other projects we did not get awarded for.
Okay.
And I think particularly the raw water line between Old Whitney and the 52 plant. So they're going to be here in the next meeting or two anyway to discuss those items, because you mentioned that there was obviously a lot more funding requests than they had funding ability.
Correct.
But there's another round. And if you remember when Adam was here sometime this summer, we were in because our rates and position were actually fairly good. We were in a very small, we were in a group with a lot of water and sewer utilities that was competing for a very small allotment of money. They designate much larger allotments of money for those that may be designated as distressed or have SOCs, which we have some of those issues now in play that weren't there before. So with all that said, Adam is going to come back, Adam and or Rob are going to come back with LKC Engineering and talk about the opportunities that are now before us to resubmit the wastewater treatment plant project and potentially some others, because our window for funding opportunity has gotten larger, which is what we've said we wanted all along. We've always, expressed frustration that we're in good shape and have the ability to take care of ourselves, and those are the folks that get bypassed with funding opportunities. Well, we have some of those funding opportunities now. So point being is LKC Engineering will be here in the next couple of meetings, if not the next, then within 2 meetings, to present some of these new options for state shared funding that we weren't available to us before.
Well, thank you, Michael, for that. So with that, would the council be open then for letting us just table this? Let's hear from LKC. Let's just get a more complete picture from them. We have time. We've got some time to make the decision. So I think that's very helpful.
Everybody fine with that?
How long is the bid good on the radios?
It's going to change day to day.
It was a quote. This is what they quoted us as a certain day. I think it may, I don't remember the length on there. It's probably been 20, 25, maybe 30 days since I got that. So I would expect in another month or so, there'd be somewhat of a price increase again. It's, it'll creep up, but if it's decided on fairly quickly, it shouldn't be too much of an increase at that point.
I would just ask if LKC is coming, to be specific, that they either come next meeting, which is the 19th, or hold off and come in on October 17th. So not come on the 3rd.
I think they need time to prepare.
Well, and I,
And I don't know what their schedule is and availability.
right,
but
well,
19th
and I would
3rd.
just say, just because of some scheduling conflicts that may occur. I mean, I just want to make sure that we're all here.
So,
Either September 19th, our
Okay.
next meeting,
right,
or not until October, a second meeting in October.
17th,
Yes.
October 17th.
Understood. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 8, update on Albemarle Business Center construction. Mr. Ferris.
Just a moment to get there. So as everyone's aware, the Albemarle Business Center is under construction with the general contractor being NJR. And if you look at the notes that are in there, it is still a lot of the basic rough work that has to be completed. There's some blasting that's taken place. There's some rock that's being discovered, and obviously not surprised to any of us though here in Albemarle, Stanley County. But and it seems like every report adds more blasting. But there, some portion of the gravity line, sewer line has been installed. I've mentioned in the past that the RCP pipe, the storm drain pipe, is an issue that is of a national concern, and they've had a lot of difficulty getting that in. But you can see it's beginning to arrive this month. And then a big issue that was discussed at the last meeting that will be discussed in more detail in the September meeting this month is the coordination of the electric infrastructure. This was not the first time that was discussed. It's been discussed for quite a while, and the tentative thought had been it would be somewhere around the first of the year. That work needs to take place before other activities occur on the site, so that there's not work that's done by NGR undone by the city and have to be replaced. We want to make sure it fits perfectly within the timing of the project, because there's also things that NGR can do as part of their contract that are going to expedite and help the installation of the electric system. So a timeline for that should be a little bit more known once we get to the September meeting, but the project does continue to move along without any significant issues or delays.
Comments, questions?
Yes. So in the past, even since we purchased that property down there, we have leased it out for someone to farm. And my assumption is, and I know what assuming is, that no one is farming it right now.
That's correct.
I'm looking at Michael
Yeah,
Ferris.
I don't recall. I know when we began the project, we were in the middle of a year, and the contract with the person who has the farming rights did so knowing that some crop could be damaged or impacted by the construction. So it was a little bit of, farm at your own risk. Right now, I don't.
Okay, so will you figure that out? Because it really looks bad. It looks really grown up. And I couldn't tell if that was growth or if that was something that was out there that just had burnt up because the weather has been so bad.
Along 52?
Along the 52 part.
side.
I can answer that. It is not any farming.
No.
He's not farming at all. We got too much stuff under
Yeah.
construction in there. He would not be able to make any money.
Wouldn't think so.
So you know that for
Yes,
sure.
yes.
Okay, so I thought that Mr. Ferris might would know that.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. That there's so much construction going on, but it again didn't mean that there wasn't a small portion that somebody.
Because it really is really
Yeah, it's a lot of
overgrown.
undergrowth.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of it. Somebody mentioned that to me. And I went down that way and just paid attention to it.
Municipal calendar is in your agenda. Anyone have any questions? Moving on to the consent agenda. Number 10, Resolution 2229 to approve a stormwater planning grant application. Number 11, Resolution 2230 to consider a petition for annexation of 12+ acres on Forever Road. Number 12, Ordinance 2255, amending the operating budget. Number 13, landfill gas delineation engineering contract approval. Number 14, Ordinance 2256, amending the landfill compactor project budget. And number 15, electric service territory agreement extension. Anyone have any questions or comments?
Mayor, I'd like to pull out number 11.
Okay.
And I'd like to pull out number 12.
Okay.
That, yes.
I'll
number
entertain a
12.
motion then for numbers 10, 13, 14, and 15.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Aldridge, second by Councilmember Townsend. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. All
Um,
right, number 11, consider a petition for annexation of 12 plus acres on Forever Road.
Mayor, if I could, I'd like to have that set for October 17th instead of the 3rd.
Where's Mr.? We'll have to re-advertise with that. Will that be a problem? It just cost us a little bit. Is that right, Mr. Robinson?
Has it already been,
Yeah,
has it
was
been,
in the,
has it
sorry,
been,
I believe it was in the paper tonight, was it not? Was that one of them in the paper tonight? Yeah. Okay, so it's time, we got to have time to change it?
I wouldn't think it had run before we would have set the date. That seems like,
Third.
All right, she's asking to move that to the
Third.
second meeting in October. Is that a problem?
It was set for October the 3rd.
All right, I have a motion by Councilmember Hughes to change it to the second meeting in October.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Aldridge. Further discussion?
Uh,
Okay. Mr. Whitley, do you have a comment?
And I was, well, Kevin, one second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Number 12, ordinance 2255, amending the operating budget. Ms. Hall?
I just remember whenever Dr. Scott was here, he was talking about that something got inadvertently left out of the budget, his budget. Is that's where that is? And Michael, I guess I don't understand. I really don't understand. Where is it coming from and to? If it was left out of public housing, I've got it open right now, but I just didn't understand that.
If you don't mind, I'm gonna pull it up real quick for you.
I'm sorry, but after I heard him talk about it, I knew that's what this was, and I'm thinking, how did that happen?
Yeah, so the line that was set up in our budget from the previous director was specifically to track vacancy turnaround. And when Dr. Scott was here, right at the new budget season, everything's rolling over. Sometimes lines that are existing don't automatically roll over to set to be, looked at and reviewed. So it wasn't there. He wouldn't have known to look for it, being here so early. So this is to give him another budget for the line specifically to track for contract vacancy turnaround. And what we've been discussing, with all the situations in housing is he's got the insurance proceeds money that have to be used for modernization and development. And he also just has an annual operating budget that has to fund the vacancy turnarounds. So try to break these out into the different buckets of, like he was saying, get the vacancy turnaround averages to, I think, 2,000 to 3,000, I think he was speaking to earlier. That's something the operating budget can handle on an annual basis. But when you start getting into the larger, $10,000 to $12,000 range of, having to improve a unit, maybe use those modernization funds in the operating budget for that, and then capital funds for the very large things like the sewage.
I guess my bottom line is, in his budget, this appears that it's coming from his fund balance.
Mhm.
And it looks like, to quote Mr. Townsend, we're in a state of emergency right there. And that this may have to be done, but if we're using, $90,000, I'm just wondering if where we are right now with what's going on over there, if this is what we need to be doing with that, okay? And I'm just throwing that out.
Then I'll say this: the 90,000 is a safe estimate looking at where that money was spent last year. It hit about $85,000, but what we have now available to us this year is also the modernization. So you may not need to use all of it, but it's just a safe estimate based off what we know.
Out of his fund balance.
Yes, ma'am. And that's a typical strategy for budgeting is
Oh, yeah,
if
as
their
well we know.
revenues are low, you just balance it with the proposed reserve. So
I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve ordinance 2255.
Motion by Councilmember Whitley,
Second.
second by Councilmember Dry. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Those opposed?
No.
Motion carries. Under new business, consider approval of a Foxtrot multifamily project. Staff will introduce.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, we haven't had one of these in a while, but if council will remember, we do have a requirement in our ordinance that all multifamily projects over 8 units come before city council for approval in the R8 and the R8 district. So that's what this is. This is a proposed 30-unit multifamily development of 24 net zero energy cottages, as well as 6 garage style apartments that are going to be done on this development. This is to be placed at, this is brought to us by Green Street Land Company LLC, and it is at tax parcel 80849, which is approximately 5.69 acres of land. About 3.5 of it will actually be used for this development. The rest is in floodplain primarily. And it is at the end of the unopened right-of-way along Fox Run and Magnolia Street. As mentioned, the primary access to this development is proposed through build-out of the unopened right-of-way, Magnolia Street extension, that intersects with, and to have it intersect with Fox Run Drive, as well as the unopened, a portion of unimproved right-of-way along Magnolia Street, and this should be substantial access to the site from both sides. The R6 Urban Residential District, the density for multifamily is 29 dwelling units per acre, or 1,500 square feet of lot area per dwelling. At that number, you could conceivably get 165 units here, although realistically, we know that's not usually likely, especially when you have that much floodplain. Proposed 30 units would be well under that amount. As mentioned, there's going to be 6, and I'll show the map here in just a minute as well, their plan. There are 6 garage apartments, as well as 24 cottages. So these will be rental, and they will be on one parcel, but they are not going to be an apartment style for the most part. We mentioned the setbacks there. There was a couple exceptions on that we've noted that would potentially need to be changed. Landscaping, the new street extension shows street trees on both sides of the street, spaced approximately 35 feet apart. No other landscaping is required. The natural vegetation, landscape buffer exceeding buffering requirements is proposed to remain in place along portions of the property. That's really only applicable along the R10 portions of the property that this borders. The additional parts are not required. This development does not meet the traffic requirements for TIA. The developer proposes to extend city water, sewer, and electric service to serve the proposed site. Utilities are readily available along Magnolia, Fox Run, and Ridge Streets, as well as sewer service available on site to the rear of the proposed structures. As mentioned, the developer has shown a road profile with a variable width street of 26 feet minimum from curb face to curb face, and a maximum of 32 feet in areas proposed for on-street parking, of which they are proposing 13 on-street spaces, and those are included in addition to rear parking behind the cottages or garage parking at each of the garage apartment units. The developer has proposed a 50-foot right-of-way. While standard right-of-way widths for local streets for new streets is 60 feet, staff's agreeable to this width as it's consistent with the right-of-way on either end of the development. There's not really much of a benefit to adding additional widths to this portion of it for that reason. Sidewalks are included on this street, as well as Ridge and Fox Run along the exterior of the development. And the developer is proposing to complete a 26-foot wide Magnolia Street extension from the current end of its pavement through to the intersection with Fox Run Drive and extend sidewalks and street trees. Staff believes this will provide for a consistent road width and much improved street network for the development and its neighbors. Some comments here should be necessary by the fire marshal. The hammerheads at the ends of the private drive may be required to be extended 60 feet on either side from their current 30 feet. And that's something that we would work with the fire marshal with before plans are finalized for this. Also, it'd be staff's recommendation to council that the unused portion of the 50-foot right-of-way, which exists right now to the west of Magnolia Street, be abandoned, with each of the adjoining properties receiving 25 feet in width. And we would suggest that that be added as a condition. And I'll be happy to show you what we're talking about on the map as well in just a minute. The staff believes the proposal meets all ordinance requirements for multifamily development in the city with the following conditions. That being that the fire marshal approve the hammerheads and fire apparatus access issues and make changes as needed. Setbacks from right-of-way for units 34, 5, 14, 15, and 24 be increased to 10 feet to meet setback requirements for R6. It's really a relatively minor issue, and I have spoken with the applicant. They said they've already made those changes. We don't have that new plan, but right now they're anywhere between about 5 to 8 feet. So those units need to be shifted in a little bit. Also, that city council consider abandonment of unopened right-of-way between properties that is not proposed to be paved. Should such abandonment not be approved by city council, staff would work with the developer to ensure that adequate buffer does remain on engineered plans afterwards. And let me go ahead and a second here. Okay. All right, to get our bearings here, this is Ridge Road over here. This is Fox Run Drive. The road currently ends. There is a small stub out at the end of that right now. And then the right-of-way currently extends down 50 feet wide down onto this property. This is all floodplain over here. They're not proposing to do anything except add a sidewalk into that. No buildings would be encroaching into the floodplain. Magnolia Street is proposed to be extended on down and into the current right-of-way that's here right now to connect with the existing Magnolia Drive. They are proposing sidewalks and street trees along that as well. These are private drives off of, and let me back up here. The parking spaces are also labeled here. There's 5, 5, and 3, so there's 13 additional parking spaces here. These are private drives off of the Magnolia Street extension, or whatever name we come up with that. For that, there are driveways to the rear of these units, and then these are the six garage apartment units here. And the setbacks here really just need to be, these buildings just need to be pulled back a little bit so they meet 10 feet. They're all very close, but that was one of the conditions that we recommended, and I think they'll be able to meet that easily. If I could back up real quick. I don't know if you can see this real well or not, but we have, the city has an unopened right-of-way on Magnolia that's very curvy, comes down through here. It's currently being used as a drive for the, I guess that's the radio station there. And it actually works out about perfect. We would recommend leaving this portion of it open to be paved, everything from here to the west to be closed. That 25 feet that would fall on the radio station property would effectively, that would cover their driveway right here. So they would have that, and then this development could take the rest of that there. And I would recommend that we bring that back at a following meeting so we can go ahead and do that abandonment.
So Kevin, you've got your cursor right there at the corner right now.
Mhm.
Show me where the proposed Magnolia extension would go.
Right here
All the way, okay.
up to this.
So it actually turns, Magnolia would come into Fox Run before you get to the Fox Run apartment. The current Fox Run
Yeah.
apartment.
Yeah, it's to the left. and
Right.
it goes
Yeah.
Back to the right.
Yeah, yeah.
Gotcha. And this came before planning and zoning
That's correct. And they recommended for approval with conditions.
with conditions?
Yes.
With the conditions that
The
you just
three
mentioned?
conditions that we listed, yes.
That you missed,
Yeah.
that you mentioned. Can you put those back up again?
Certainly.
50-foot, the hammerhead, then the
50-foot?
yeah, the 50-foot, the hammerhead, and then the other 25.
Are there 25 to be shared between the two?
Right.
Yeah, basically that's, of course, this is something the fire marshal could require anyway. I just wanted to clarify on here as part of this design that, that there would be some flexibility to figure that out with him should it be needed. The setbacks, and then we would recommend the abandonment of that unopened right-of-way that could benefit both of these properties. I don't really, seeing how it goes into the floodplain there, I don't really see much use for that in this case.
Have they done some bore samples over there? We had this same thing years ago that they abandoned because of all the rock.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't know anything about that.
Be curious to see how that goes.
We have had that happen with
No.
a few developments. Yeah,
You are in Stanley County.
it's true.
Questions, council?
Fingers
Comments?
crossed.
I'll entertain a motion.
So move.
Second.
Motion to approve
Approve.
the multifamily project by Councilmember Aldridge, second by Councilmember Dry,
Does that include the additional comments on that?
including the comments
does.
that he presented.
Yes.
Second.
Further comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Number 17, 2208, consider approval of 8-lot residential subdivision on Woodhurst Lane. It's a non-residential. Staff, you want to introduce that one?
Okay. So we do have a commercial, I'm sorry, not a commercial, a non-residential subdivision. I want to clarify that. Let me pull up the application for this as well while I'm doing that. Let's see. A non-residential subdivision by Frank Shepherdson. The current property owner is South Central Oil Company. Mr. Shepherdson will be purchasing the property, and they have titled it Woodhurst Development. And explain a little bit about what's going on with this first. This is the property. This is behind Lowe's on Woodhurst, close to the corner of Bird Street there. This is the approximate location of the watershed that kind of divides the property here. I don't think it's a major concern right now at this point for subdivision. It will come up later on with development. And the second, I'm going to explain a couple of things here. The second page here, they are intending potentially to phase this in. So we did want to show, they gave us this, we did want to show what their potential phasing would be like, but what they are asking for is ultimately eight lots for preliminary approval tonight. And I've got some other items in here as well that I'm going to try to kind of separate out for you. We have buildings and parking lots shown and all that. And those are largely development items that would be coming in for approval later. So I just want to try to separate that out before I go any further. Our main focus tonight will be on the lots themselves and public infrastructure related to that. Let's see. This is zoned LID, Light Industrial District. And what is proposed is to be industrial units at this time. There will be there'll be two primary accesses to this development: a private drive to the west of the property on Woodhurst Lane, which will provide access to Lot 3, and a new 26-foot unnamed city street to the right of the property on Woodhurst Lane will provide access to all other lots. per subdivision ordinance, and in order to break this large block down, provide alternatives to reduce further traffic and open up additional commercial land for development. This proposed street should be required to stub out to the adjacent property to the north. It currently does not. No open space is required. We've not seen any indication of any shared amenities or common areas on there. We would ask if those are part of the development later on, that covenants and restrictions be provided for those. Utilities and topography. There's currently existing city water, sewer, and electricity to serve the proposed site from Woodhurst Lane. Connections are shown on the plan. There will probably be a few modifications from that, as we found out that some of those that exist on site are actually are not actual laterals. However, the access is right there on Woodhurst, so it shouldn't be that significant to change. A new 26-foot wide paved street is proposed. With this being in the watershed, no curb and gutter will be required. As mentioned, staff recommends this street to be stubbed out to the north for future development. Right-of-way width is also shown at 55. It should be 60. Especially believe with this being a non-residential development with potentially heavy trucks and stuff coming in, that would be important as well. Also a street profile including road width, drainage, planting strips, and material depths is also going to be needed on the plat. With this being industrial, no sidewalks are proposed. They are not required as long as they are maintained as uses permitted in LID. Should this be developed in whole or in part and need to be rezoned for commercial use at a later time, we would ask that those be installed at that time along the applicable frontages. Setbacks for LID are 30 feet in the front from Woodhurst and the new street, 0 feet on the side, and 20 feet to the rear. Any parcel which will be developed or used as commercial would also require a 10-foot side setback. We put that on here as a reminder. It's not applicable right now to the subdivision. A rear 20-foot setback is needed to be shown along the western boundary at the rear of Lot 3. Front setback for structures along the new street should also be shown as 30. Relatively minor changes, but they need to be included on the plat. Lot sizes, we have no lot size requirements for industrial subdivisions. Staff believes that MJSR major subdivision 22-08 major subdivision for Woodhurst Lane will be in compliance with the changes identified above and listed below. In addition, there's some items related to development and construction of this property which can be approved separately from approval of this subdivision. We would recommend that those be done during a development approval process. In order to avoid confusion, staff has identified these separately, and I'm going to focus on just these items up here, which we would consider conditions for approval of the preliminary subdivision. One, that the subdivision shall show proposed street name, lot lengths and size table, correct building envelopes for LID development, and a street profile. Also, that the right-of-way for the unnamed street shall be increased to 60 feet, that the new unnamed street shall be stubbed out to the northeast of the property and shown on all plats. Street may be phased in as is proposed, but it must be constructed at a minimum to the end of the frontage of each lot being proposed for platting and development at that time. Any required covenants and deed restrictions for any open or common space areas shared between lots on the development shall be shown. Let me pull that back up for you again.
Inquiring minds want to know, Kevin, is the petitioner here?
I don't see them here right now.
Okay, thank you.
They were at planning board.
They were?
They were at planning board. And planning board did recommend for this with the conditions that staff provided.
Questions, comments?
Mr. Robinson, just in the comment section or in the description there, you had Bird B-Y-R-D Street. I think it's B-I-R-D Road. Not that that's a big, I just want to
Okay.
make sure it's right.
I questioned myself when I was typing that. I
That's
probably should have
okay.
looked it up.
That's right. You're not from here, we understand.
Spell bird different down east, don't they?
That's right.
Move to approve with the 4 conditions for approval.
Motion by Councilmember Dry to move with the conditions.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Hughes. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Number 18, we have another residential subdivision, 2209, to consider approval of a 6-lot residential subdivision. Council, I have a conflict on this. I need to be excused if I can entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Aldridge, second by Councilmember Townsend. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
This
Hold
is
on.
the,
And after he leaves,
gotcha.
there you go. Now you can introduce.
Okay. This is a 6-lot major subdivision on Anderson Grove Church Road. There's the plat right there. This is the existing home that is there right now that will remain. Everything else will be cut off from around it. Each one of the lots is a minimum of 1/3 acre right now. Let's go ahead and pull that up. This is a fairly simple one. This does not require any new infrastructure. It is over the threshold for doing a minor subdivision right now. So we have to bring these in for approval for that reason. As mentioned, it's a 6-lot traditional residential subdivision located on Anderson Grove Church Road near the
Spelling error.
intersection with, sorry,
Spelling error.
yeah, apologize.
That's okay.
All right. We spell Anderson differently too.
That's right.
Near the intersection with Stafford Drive. The 2.29 acre property is currently zoned R10 and is planned to remain under the current zoning district. The existing home will remain with adjacent outbuildings removed and the 5 new lots available for new single-family homes. This is in the watershed. Since it is in the watershed, it does require 1/3 acre lots. That supersedes what we have on the R10 zoning. So they have made that change to reflect that as well. Access on all these lots will be directly to Anderson Road with no new streets. There is no open space required on a development of this size. There's currently existing city water, sewer, and electricity to serve the proposed lots on Anderson Grove Church Road. As mentioned, no new streets. Sidewalks are fee in lieu. With this being infill development of less than 10 lots, those can each be done at the time of new home construction, so they would not be required with the subdivision. These setbacks are R10. In R10 are 30 from the front, 10 from the side, 30 from the rear, which are shown on the plat. Lots are shown at or above the 1/3 acre requirement. There's no general infrastructure required for this subdivision. Staff believes that the major subdivision for 400 Anderson Grove Church Road meets requirements for approval.
Questions, comments? Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second?
Second.
Before I ask for discussion, this did come before planning and zoning,
I'm sorry. Yes, it did, and they also
They
recommended for approval.
and they did with any other conditions?
No conditions or
additional
anything else with this.
Okay,
Yeah.
is there discussion on the motion? If not, all those approve, aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Motion approved. We'll go ahead and call 19 up, whoever is doing it. Oh,
Have you already called it?
I just called 19 up.
You already called what it was.
Well, consider road closure for Baden Brews.
Do you have questions or do you just
And give
want
me
to-
your name and address and then tell us what you're wanting to do.
Okay, so my name's Montana Noel and our address is 6751 Old Monroe Road, Indian Trail, North Carolina.
And tell us what you're planning to do.
So the plan, the festival that happened 3 weeks ago, the Downtown Baden Brews Festival, we're wanting to do that exact same thing, but extend it to the other side of First Street. And if that plan doesn't work, we have a backup plan. I've been in contact with the NCDOT and they are an all like approved for it as long as we can get the minutes from this council meeting to approve it. It's a multi-vendor show, festival, food trucks, breweries, just bringing business to downtown Albemarle.
And you're asking to close First Street from North Street to South Street, is that correct?
Yes.
Council have any questions, comments?
I do. We've gotten, and I will tell you to be, again, for complete transparency, at our last, special committee meeting, special events committee meeting, it was mentioned that you all were wanting to do this. And that was about, and I'm looking at Lisa, that would have been the third Wednesday in August, whenever that was. So there was some talk about it because it had been so successful and that you all wanted to do another one. And as a follow-up, that again, for complete transparency, I received a phone call that said, we will not meet the 60 days. Should we go ahead and file the application? And I said, sure, based on what you've done. So then I know that the discussion is about closing or having King Street, the feed in down on First Street for the sweet shop. It's my understanding that I think Joy has made the run about talking to different people and that kind of thing, and she left us an email about what she had done, and I appreciate that in preparation for this. But I still think there's some concern about where King feeds into First Street for the sweet shop, and they are open until 2:00. And I don't want to do anything that I know that from personal contacts that Saturdays are a big, big day for them.
Absolutely.
And I don't want to mess that up and would like, want Sean to be able to.
And that
have-
is Plan B. Plan A is both sides of First Street. If
Right.
we were unable to get that approved tonight, we
Right.
would go to Plan B, which would be First Street up to King Street in the alleyway.
And I've talked to everyone on North, and everybody's for it except for one, and we're going to make a contingency on it to keep the dinette open right in front of it so people can get in and out. And they close at 11, which is when the festival starts.
Now, is that like the dinette?
Yeah.
Okay.
First Street dinette.
So the north end of that
Yeah,
of the
so
street.
that's what we proposed to DOT, was to close north to south first, and the intersection. They were completely on board with it as long as we had the minutes. But if that wouldn't get approved, then we were going to do King, but we didn't want to shut down the sweet shop
Right,
because they're staying
Busy.
town.
Yeah.
right.
Mr. Ferris gave us some
Update.
information tonight, council, that they have worked out a deal with, where they can let the sweet shop go up the alleyway and come out there, the side of the old Davis Little Drugs.
Sure.
And it actually, as far as that goes, they could go back, even though it's a one-way street, we could mark it for that day and let them go back to Second Street. They've been having to do the same thing while we were putting in the water
Sure.
line on the south part off
Yeah.
the First. So I don't see that being an issue. We can get them in and get them out without any problem, I think.
I-
We don't want to hurt the business.
No.
No, we do not. And I wanted to make sure that that was brought to the attention.
And when I'm, Mr.
And we wanted to go ahead and put out there that public parking, we would need to just shut it down that day, because that's where we have the bands and breweries in that parking lot.
The
Right.
city parking lot there on the corner.
That's in your request. I agree with that. Yes, sir.
So street,
And we,
street blocked, you can't get in there anyway.
right. And it's, I would not want to leave that intersection open. Too many safety issues. It needs to be closed so that people can cross. So we'd have somebody get hit if that road was open.
What do you mean?
The intersection of First and Main, it
Yeah.
would be closed and not open.
So
That way
Main-
people going from one side to north to south would not get hit.
So,
Hmm.
so how, okay, if we're talking, what hours are we talking?
11 to 8.
So Main Street then will be closed.
Main Street, you could get in there, but you couldn't go all the way through.
Well, I mean, you
then-
get
So
down
you would have to turn,
at Second or
Second.
Second or Depot.
right.
Correct.
Right. What? Right.
We've blocked for decades and used Harris Street to get them over to North Street. I don't think that's an issue. We would put road closed ahead up there at the 52, and we've done that for decades, and it's never been an issue before.
And we can advertise that as well on social media through paid advertising, local and Albemarle, so.
Council have any further questions, comments?
And before we do this, Your Honor, if we could make sure, and I'm sure we do, but if we could make sure somebody from staff notifies emergency medical services and 911 to make them aware that these closures are taking place.
Okay.
So you think that we've taken care of the sweet shop?
I think we have.
Well, I think it was in the email that was sent that the owner said that if he keep King Street open both ways, that would work for him.
Right.
I think it's great that the business owners downtown are working together.
Further questions, comments? I'll entertain a motion.
So move.
Motion by Councilmember Aldridge to approve.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Dry. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question related to that. Do we know if the social district will be in place by then? I mean, I'm making that comment because it's not in place yet. And last time I saw people on the street because people seemed to be under the impression that it was already in place.
Hopefully ABC will act on that before then.
You just do it and ask for forgiveness.
Number 20, Resolution 2232, considered Albemarle ABC Board request for increase in monthly stipend. Council, you have a request in there, for basically a $75 increase per month.
Move
Move to
approval.
approve.
Motion by Councilmember Q, second by Councilmember Dry. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Number 21, discussion of SRO program. Mr. Ferris, are you taking that, or is the school system taking that?
No, I was planning on taking it. I'm not sure if we have representatives of the school system here or not. We might.
do.
But I met with the school superintendent who shared the two resolutions that you have in your agenda package, asking the city to fund the SRO programs at all 4 schools within the city limits at 100%. For years, we've had a partnership with the school system where we paid 50%. We believe that school safety is we don't operate schools, but we are in the public safety business, so it's been a joint venture. Obviously, when this request came in, school was going to start before this council meeting occurred. And then also our budget was set. I've worked with and discussed with Chief Bullhorst, and you look in the agenda comments that currently we can continue with the 3 that we have, 1 dedicated officer at the high school, 1 at the middle school, and then 1 rotating between the 2 elementary schools under our current agreement, which is we continue to pay 50%, but that Chief Bullhorst believes that when he gets the BLAT graduating class in January, we should be able to add the 4th. And so if that works, that gives us time to work on something for the future where if there's going to be a change that can be discussed, that can be considered. I don't know if council would be in agreement to make any change, but that gives us time to at least get something codified in place for this school year, which would be continuation of what we've been doing. And then look at what we would do moving forward in the future. And I do think with what's being proposed right now, there are some equity issues for our taxpayers versus the way we charged around the rest of the county, with Albemarle residents being the only ones charged for high school, middle school, elementary schools. We can get into issues of where our residents go. A lot of them don't ever go to some of the cities that the schools in the cities that they're paying for, and some of those issues. But with all that said, it's a little bit late, and so we're trying to find a way to formalize what we've been doing in the past, get it in place, and be able to work on the future. So I don't know if Chief Bullhorst has anything to add to that, but that's the situation that we're under right now, and just want to get something formally adopted, which we were obviously prepared and have been providing the same services as we had been in recent years, and want to continue that with the ability to add the 4th in January and give us time to work on a long-term agreement if anything was going to change.
Council, I think what I'm hearing is that we would add the 4th in January on the condition we continue as we currently are doing, and council would make a decision in the next budget year whether they want to change anything. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yep.
Yes, ma'am.
Just for, again, sorry, I stepped out a moment but again, to introduce, I'm sure it was introduced as as Mr. Ferris's comments in the agenda, but I received a phone call now that I'm looking at my notes. I received a phone call the 22nd, which would have been just a couple of days after our last meeting or a week after our last meeting, from Dr. Dennis asking that if I would come see him, if I could meet with him. And so I did. And when I got there, he gave me both of these resolutions. And if you see the note on the very bottom of it, and we've got folks from the county schools here right now, but I can't see them, but they're out there. And I was a little bit concerned that they had made these resolutions, that the school board had made these resolutions, and we didn't know about it to start this school year. And I had that conversation with Dr. Dennis, immediately called Michael and said, I think you need to talk with Dr. Dennis. And I appreciate Michael doing that because I think he met with him by the end of that week, before that week was out. So there was some discussion, Michael, about the 50% versus the 30%. What were you able to figure out about that? Because it came back to me in speaking with one of the school board members that though we had said all along we had been paying 50% for some point in time, that we were not paying that. So I wanted, where are we on that?
Yeah, so again, my understanding had always been 50%, for us to pay 30, that would have been a reduction, which I'm not sure why that would have ever occurred. I don't remember two boards agreeing to that. But looking back at the last 3 years of payments, it is at the 50% mark, except the last two is at the 50% mark approximately. The year prior to that, the third year, if you remember, that's when we added back one SRO and there was a grant. And some of those grant funds paid for a portion of adding back that additional SRO. So that year was not a 50-50 basis. Well, I should say the city did not pay 50% of the full program costs. Then we may have paid 50-50 with the school system. I don't know because I don't know what they paid in that year. But the years since that, we have been paying 50%. And that's always been my understanding of our arrangement. And that's what the previous approved agreement between the entities said as well.
Right. And again, that's what I thought it was. And then someone was giving me that 30. Mayor, you may ask, I mean, if there's, well, I think the school safety officer is probably one of the folks that just came in.
Beverly are both back there.
Yeah, I think, and I
Either
don't,
one of you want to speak?
Good evening. My name is Flo. Thanks for this opportunity to speak to you all. Just one thing to add to this, I was able to add into our grant funding, the funding for another officer for the city of Albemarle. So we wasn't sure if we were going to be able to do that or not, but I was able to do that. So if the grant funding goes through, which we should hear something by the end of September, I would have around $33,000 that we could give back to the city of Albemarle to help fund this additional position.
very
So I
good,
just wanted to make that known as well.
very good,
Good. Thank you.
very good. Thank you.
Council, if you're in favor, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Aldridge, second by Councilmember Hall. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Number 22, discussion of e-scooters. I believe we have a couple representatives here tonight that wish to speak on this.
Alex Zimmerman, 411 Walker Street, Kannapolis, North Carolina. Good afternoon, Council. When I was notified that the e-scooter discussion was up tonight, I wanted to come show face and directly answer any questions, comments, and concerns, and join in the discussion with you.
Pull that mic up to you. You
Yeah.
can stand up straight, but just pull it up.
Yes, ma'am. Is that better?
Thank you, much better.
Tell us how your program operates.
Yes, sir. So it operates by, we come into a city that's geo-fenced, for a better term. There's a boundary around Albemarle, and each scooter is GPS tracked in live time, where we can monitor usage, parking, speed, and everything like that. We're constantly looking at the scooters, and our back-end system formats that data in a way to optimize rider usage. So,
And go ahead and tell us the cost how it works,
Yes, sir.
what all
So,
you can do.
so to start, you see a scooter on the street. You walk up to it with your phone, scan the QR code on top of it, and it will take you to our app. Our app is on the Apple Store and Google Play Store. Once you download our app, you'll get instructions on how to ride and where to ride, and then you load in your credit card information and go from there.
All right, a couple of questions I've heard.
Yes, sir.
Tell us the cost. Start with that.
$1 to unlock and 30 cents per minute.
Okay, per minute.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I've had a question about do you offer helmets? Is what I've been asked.
We do not. We encourage them, but we do not currently offer them.
So in other words, if somebody's gonna ride one, they need to bring a helmet with them.
Yes, sir. We strongly encourage it.
Okay, we have an ordinance against riding on sidewalks. How do you handle that?
If we could revert that ordinance at all possible, that'd be wonderful. If not, we could limit sidewalks to usage only being in the streets with our no ride limits.
And how do your people that are gonna ride them know all this?
So if contracted, we'd start with social media outreach to explain rules that way. Other than that, we have in-app advertising and directions. So we have live banners when you open up the app before you start your ride that you see saying you can ride here, you can't ride here. If the sidewalk thing, you wanted to stop it there, we'd inform them that way as well.
Do they accept some kind of terms at the end of that?
Yes, sir. They accept it. Initially, they agree to our rider terms and conditions, and then they accept on the app once you see like a pop-up that needs to be accepted, so it's acknowledged.
How do you control age?
We can implement a driver's license picture sent to be verified through our application. Right now, we're not currently utilizing that. We just encourage ridership be 16 and up, but we could do a driver's license verification.
How did you get here? How did,
Yes, ma'am.
and again, I'm just laying it out there. The way they appeared without anybody knowing about it, anybody within the city knowing about it, in my opinion, and this is me, not this council,
Yes, ma'am.
was not a good way to start off. Okay, so how did you choose and bring them here?
I apologize first and foremost. So Mr. Williams, we saw an Instagram ad for the Albemarle Night Market. We contacted him and he was very inviting to the idea. I didn't know if he had any affiliation with the city council or not. So we started there and kind of wanted to, and then we had fantastic numbers that night and the following day. So to prove that the market was viable, we wanted to do a week-long pilot program. And we were reached out by the city. I think Ms. Joy reached out to us a day or two after. And from there, we started the conversation, loading her up with all the necessary information to give to the city council to move forward. And so that's kind of how we got into Albemarle.
So in the newspaper interviewed you,
Yes, ma'am.
and the comment was, and I quote, that that you were giving them to the city. Okay? And that concerns me because when there's a gift, the scooters are free to the city. Okay? There had to be an acceptance of them, and they just appeared.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay?
I don't think that was me being quoted as a gift to the city. I've just appeared to the city. I didn't say
Okay.
those words specifically. Yes, ma'am.
Do those scooters have a training mode on them?
Yes, sir.
Is it work?
Yes, sir.
Okay, because I know that the majority of injuries, and they're much higher than bicycles, is with first-time riders.
Yes, sir.
And most of them are head injuries because they're not required to wear helmets.
Yes, sir.
Where else do you have these?
So we're a smaller company. We started a year ago and currently service the High Point Furniture Market, which about 75 to 8,000 people come in twice a year to do the market. And we only do the trade show twice a year. We're looking for expansion and believe in the viability in smaller markets. So when we saw the night market outreach poster, we came here. And from the stats I'm seeing currently, I'm going to say it's very, very viable.
You set a speed limit.
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, you can keep them from flying, so to speak.
Yes, ma'am. And we can also, I know there's those two big hills. We can put a slow zone on the downward side of the hill, stuff like that, and make the riding more safe.
Okay.
So I'll be the first one to say that I don't have an issue with the scooters, but I do have an issue with the way they were rolled out.
Yes, sir.
I believe you only have one chance to make a first impression. And as a council member, we are leaders in the community. And when I started receiving phone calls going, hey, what's up with these scooters downtown? They're everywhere. I said, I have no idea what you're talking about. What are you talking about?
Yes, sir.
Then I was stepping out of the bank at the square and nearly got ran over by two of them. people were riding on the sidewalk, no helmets, and how fast these things go?
Right, 15 miles per hour.
How much?
15 miles per hour.
15, yeah.
Yes, sir. If not limited in any other
Yeah,
constraint.
so, I mean, again, I'm just one member of this council, but I think 15 miles an hour with no helmet on a sidewalk
It's
is a
dangerous.
disaster waiting to happen.
Yes, sir, and we could very easily limit it to whatever the council is safe with speed-wise.
And some of these ordinances are, that other cities have are pretty complicated. Some of them require licensing with the city, and they require an agreement, require insurance in case there's damage or injuries. Have you run into any of that yet?
Yes, sir, so we have insurance, and we have sent Ms. Joy a contract. I can send over COI and everything else that you would like to see. So I just saw the initial discussion today and wanted to come introduce myself because I don't like how they were brought in. I thought he might have been like a member of the city, but I'm here to apologize about that and give you all the necessary information to move forward.
So,
Like
I'm sorry.
I'm just going to say right now, and like the mayor said, our ordinance doesn't allow any motorized vehicles on sidewalk.
So let me add too that I was in contact with somebody else with the company.
Mr. Knight?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes. And so he sent me and our city attorney, Ms. Birch, a sample agreement contract between the city and the company that they've used or have used in the past. So Ms. Birch has actually taken it to modify, make some adjustments to it to I think make it more agreeable to us and clarify a few things. And I don't know if she has anything she wants to add tonight. Again, somebody said we're trying to deal with the situation at hand, and we're able to get a copy of that. And she did work on it today, and I don't want to.
Yeah, so revisions went out to Mr. Knight a couple of hours before the meeting started tonight. And there are just a couple of points of clarification I thought were important, specifically insurance, liability, waivers of the city, indemnification of the city if there's any incidents. So just taking care of the legalese and then bringing it to council tonight to see if you all are interested and have any additional restrictions if you want to impose those speed limits. That's something that can be worked into the contract. So a preliminary draft went out, but still open for additional restrictions if council desires.
Ms. Birch, what you sent, does that absolve us from any liability?
It does. It absolves the city as well as kind of a list of officials, employees, contractors for any liability. So that portion is covered, and if council has any other restrictions, we can include that as well.
But what about enforcement? What about enforcement? I mean, the chief sitting back there smiling. I mean, we've got our officers running 100 miles an hour. And again, I'm not, please don't misunderstand my comments, but when I first saw all those scooters, if it were up to me, I would have taken every one of them to the city warehouse and said, we have no idea who these scooters belong to. And because my personal opinion is you guys, or you or whoever brought those scooters down here with no consulting with our city attorney, with no consulting with city council, you put all of us in a very, very awkward situation. Again, I'm not against your scooters, but there's a proper chain of command that you need to go through when you introduce a new product to anything. And again, I go back to the enforcement. Number one, if somebody gets hurt on these things, if we have a resident or a citizen or anybody, a visitor walking out of a business, and one of your mopeds or scooters mows that person down, who's responsible?
We are, and like our insurance covers, we are completely responsible. The city has no responsibility in that.
Well,
avenue.
I agree with that if it's on the street. I don't agree with that if it's on the sidewalk. If we allow it on the sidewalk, I think we have some issues, and that's the reason I don't think we should allow them on the sidewalk.
But again, it goes back to the enforcement. How do we enforce this?
In what manner of enforcement?
If your clients are riding these scooters on their sidewalks, does the police department, do they issue citations, or how does that work?
No, sir, because they wouldn't be allowed to ride on the sidewalks if we put in a no ride zone on them. They wouldn't. So if a rider tried to, like say if they're already going fast and they hop up on a sidewalk, it'll gradually slow down to a complete stop. The scooter will start beeping and they'll be notified they need to get off the sidewalk.
So your GPS can limit it down so they can't drive it on the sidewalk.
Yes, sir. It makes it a lot harder, and a lot less rider usage will come out of that. But if that's the absolute necessity of the city.
So
Yes, ma'am.
I mentioned to the mayor before the meeting some concerns that I had, and one of those was when you open on the QR code on there,
Yes, ma'am.
and they have to agree to certain things.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I mean, I told Ronnie, I said, I think that our ordinance, whatever our ordinance says, has got to be on there
Yes, ma'am.
as well. And I think that's just so that they know what's expected of them. I need to clarify something when I said that the paper said, quote, that they were gifted to us. The quote is, that you all recently donated to the city a batch of 20 yellow scooters for residents to use. So that is the appropriate quote that was in the newspaper. And, by doing that, you all are making money off of it. So they're not really ours.
Yes,
It's
ma'am.
not
Yeah.
donated to the city. This is your business trying to operate within the city of Albemarle within our ordinance.
And we're open to revenue share or whatever fees are necessary to start operations.
But see, that would have been nice to know beforehand.
Yes, sir.
So it sounds to me that based on what he's sharing with us, we can make it where they slow down. We can make it they can't ride on the sidewalk. I mean, there's ways to, I think, make the items or the scooters be a positive thing in our community without just throwing the baby in the bathwater out at the same time. I'm one that I have gotten, all I've heard is positive stuff. I mean, everybody that's reached out to me has said, wow, they never thought they'd see Albemarle with scooters. So I'm of the nature, again, probably not you learn, probably not best on a future city is to just pop them in there. I said they popped up like mushrooms, but probably in the future, you need to reach out to the manager and go forward, but you're learning. But I would like to have a conversation where our attorney and the council, we can come to some kind of agreement where we can have something like that in our downtown. Based on what you're sharing with us, it can be managed. We can slow them down. They don't have to be on the sidewalks.
But what do we do now? What do we
Between
do?
now
We've
and
got
then.
20 of them out there, and people have, you said, they're using them right and left. And it won't, it'll take some time to get that
So
done.
maybe legally, Britt, do we say they go away, we get our paperwork, ducks in an order, and then they come back?
If the council is going to put additional restrictions on them, I would recommend maybe discontinuing the program until we get the contract in place.
I mean, I think we ought to.
When will you have the contract for council to see?
So I've already sent revisions to their company. If council has any other restrictions, I think the speed limit would have to be added, as well as the restriction on sidewalks. So I can add those two things and send an updated version to their company tomorrow, and it's on up to them in regards to how quickly they respond. But they have the initial revision.
I think my partner, Mr. Knight, has already made those revisions. He told me to tell that to you as well.
Okay.
So, so while all this is taking place with our attorney and your company, do you have the ability to cut a switch off and immobilize them?
Yes,
for
sir.
that?
Completely. I could take them away.
That's not. I don't think that's what. I mean, I can't speak for anybody. That's not what I want.
Yes, sir.
Again, the thing that kind of hit me from the side was the way it was just thrown at us, and I see people flying. I about got ran over by one. People flying up down the sidewalk at 15 miles an hour. I don't think that's safe for anyone. But I'm like Councilmember Hughes. I am pro scooter. I'm not pro scooters at 15 miles an hour on
Right.
sidewalks, and just running around like fire. But if we can have some provisions, if we can have some regulations, I don't personally have a problem with it.
Ms. Birch, is there any way we can let them continue to operate while we're working on this contract? I think we take them off, we're going to have a lot of complaints.
Yep.
That people are using them.
Yep.
How quickly can we do this? And give me some ideas.
I can do the updates that we've discussed tonight relatively quickly. If there's a need for it to stop operating on the sidewalk, I don't know how fast they can get something on their scooters in the kind of terms and conditions to say, scooters can operate here, or kind of the auto shut off when they roll onto the scooters. Maybe that can be more immediate.
Well, that ordinance is in place. He would have to adopt that regardless.
No, I'm saying I think he mentioned that maybe some auto shut off when they roll onto the sidewalk. So if that can
Yes,
get something
right.
done more immediately,
Right.
as well as the speed limit restriction, if there is one, maybe doing that in the interim until we can get the paperwork done is a better solution if they don't want to take them all up.
Council?
And
It sounds to me
could we
like you
also
already got
maybe,
restrictions built into the system.
Yes, sir.
You can take what we're saying and
I could
limit
go home and do it tonight.
all that stuff, so the people can't, they're here, but they're not gonna be able to go ultimately to this sidewalk or that until we get this done.
Yes, sir.
How have you handled that in the past with municipalities when this has come up?
So they very specifically tell us what they want. We listen to them. We put the limitations in our app, do some testing, and move forward from there. And generally, everyone's happy.
So, again, this is only your second town,
Yes, ma'am.
okay? And High Point is just when the furniture market's there.
Yes, ma'am.
So it's not all the time and it's not downtown, it's just at the furniture market.
Yes, ma'am.
And you saw a post about the night market and you said, that seems to be a good area.
Progressive.
Is that
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
We're
Yes, ma'am.
progressive.
So have you thought about any other place that you're headed?
Yes. Well, so yeah. So as you might know, it's kind of hard. So the breakthrough entry in a smaller company, if you're not Bird and Lime and the ones you have in Charlotte, that just completely come in and flood. So you need to take a different approach. Our approach wasn't, like you said, it wasn't very respectful to y'all. We've tried other approaches in the past, and have the city 9 times out of 10 shut this down before we have a chance to prove ourselves.
Or it takes forever,
Yes,
probably.
ma'am.
Yes.
In the past 7 days, we've gotten 556 rides. The average ride is 46 minutes.
Here?
Yes, ma'am.
That's awesome.
Yep. I've had numerous local businesses reach out to me for in-app advertising and partnerships, like the Baden Brews was talking about with shutting down the roads. If the parking is going to be an issue, we can put scooters out in certain locations to bring people in a safe way without having to use cars. Stuff like that is all viable, and we offer to the city. And we're looking forward to hiring. I've had 26 emails of people interested in charging opportunities, so we could also create local job opportunities as well. There's a lot of upside to the scooters as well as the safety risks that y'all have expressed. So I'm looking forward to, if you give us a chance, showcasing all that.
Mr. Aldridge?
so in the interim, just to protect everybody involved, would it be proper for our PIO to issue some sort of a release on social media, introducing, not saying that the city's sponsoring or the city has any affiliation, but just recognizing that we do have an opportunity for residents and visitors to utilize scooters, but the city of Albemarle is in no way, shape, or form legally or liable
Affiliated.
for any accidents, injuries, or bodily harm, just to protect us.
I think David can work on that.
I'd like to see that,
What speed do we want?
75.
I mean, what speed? I mean, I don't. I've
What's
been
the
on one.
speed downtown? Is it 20 downtown?
Yes,
Mayor?
ma'am. So they're 520, but like you said, they're in a more populated area. So
If
That's
they're
too
not on the
fast.
sidewalk, 15 doesn't bother me on the street.
But
So the
you
or-
just got to be
Still
careful
pretty
going down
fast.
Second Street when
Lord have
cars
mercy.
backing out.
Still pretty fast,
Yeah.
isn't it? What do you recommend? I mean, I don't want to take 5 hours to get somewhere, but I also
yes, ma'am.
want to.
So when you get into speed limitations, you also take topography into factor.
Right.
That big hill,
Yes,
and the
yes.
more you weigh, the slower the scooter goes. So if we just limited down to 12 and a half, I think that'd be good, fast enough to get people up hills, no matter
Okay.
on weight, size, whatever.
Okay.
And still be relatively fun to ride.
Okay.
Anything below that kind of gets in the area of, is this
You also
worth
got to
riding?
worry about traffic. You don't
No
want to cause
joke.
problems with
Right.
traffic. with it.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
To impede traffic. Right.
Yeah.
Well, if they're in the street, initially, they were riding them on the sidewalk, and that was our concern. But if they're in the street, maybe we don't need to
I
do
don't have,
a limit on the speed.
So the ordinance will have where they can be ridden, right? What streets, any streets can't, because I know,
ordinance or the agreement.
You already have that plugged into your system where they.
The ordinance just
Yes,
says
sir.
they can't ride them on sidewalk.
well, I mean,
I mean, it's just.
but we'll have
within
to
the
change,
3 or
the
4
ordinance.
I don't know if you
like
would,
3 or
we
4
would
Oh.
want to.
around here.
because
Unless you're
under
gonna limit
state,
them
I can
somewhere.
email
Yeah,
You
well,
wanna limit them
pictures of the
somewhere, you
exact
have to
map.
do that.
It's about the.
I think we should talk to law
Okay.
enforcement, see what they think,
We got
as far as
Y'all
too many
can't-
discussions.
if law enforcement's got any
Okay.
ideas where we should not allow them.
Well,
Because I know in Charlotte, they don't allow them on sidewalks downtown.
Ms. Birch, you're good with that as we move forward and you'll work on the agreement to bring back to council. Will you also have the conversation with the police chief and see if there's any concerns about any area we need to limit?
Okay, we'll do.
All right.
So,
Thank-
last question. You said in your demographics that you had 500 and some,
Yes, ma'am.
whatever. How far out of this downtown? I know I saw somebody on North First Street, above like where the bank is in Harris Teeter. I saw somebody that far out, but how far?
That's where they first came in. Don't you have a storage place up there at the bank of Uwharrie Bank?
No, sir. I take them from Kannapolis and back.
What, didn't you initially drop something off there?
You are? Yes, sir. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
that may
Also,
be where you-
I've seen them go as far as like the high school, Applebee's. People are starting to really start using them.
Applebee's?
Yes, ma'am. There's
So is there like a shut-off radius?
yes, sir.
If I want to ride to Oakboro, is it going to shut off on St. Martin Road or what?
We wouldn't have nothing to do with it.
I can email you all the map with the current
That
map
would be
looks like,
great.
and see if you can take fault with that. Also, all of the limitations we can put on the school.
I appreciate
Okay.
I appreciate your entrepreneurial spirit.
Uh-huh.
Scooters in downtown Albemarle is something I never thought I'd see, and this young man might come back a couple of years from now with light rail. Who knows?
Yeah.
I'm proud of you, okay?
I will say this, I like the scooters, I love the scooters. And obviously you learn something from your business approach as you go about bringing this to other municipalities. But to this council, this is not the first time that we heard about possibility of scooters. I brought this idea up 2 years ago before Pfeiffer even opened,
Oh,
and
yeah.
we fell asleep on that idea.
Mhm.
But I wish you luck, you
Yes,
know,
sir.
Mhm.
as you go forward.
I
You know, I
appreciate
think out of curiosity, I got one question for you though. I know you said in the newspaper about the Albemarle, the open air market or the night market or something attracting your attention. Is there anything else in Albemarle that attracted your attention and made you want to bring the scooters here other than the air market?
So at first it was just the market, to be completely honest, and then as I was putting the scooters out, the community, everyone I talked to had been extremely supportive, super nice, and I had like 30 interactions a day putting the scooters out. It made me want to come back every time, other than the fact that the scooters. But yeah, I
Are a
love
lot
the
of
community.
Are some of them being ridden around Pfeiffer's campus?
Yes, sir. And during this meeting alone, we've had 7 rides.
Really?
Tonight.
Yes, ma'am.
Wow.
Wow.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for your
Good
time.
Thank you
luck.
for being here.
Appreciate
Yes, ma'am.
it.
Thank y'all.
Good
Thank you.
Thank you, Scooter.
Thank you.
Number 25, Resolution 2231 to adopt a public commenting policy. Ms. Birch, you want to come forward and discuss that?
Cindy's standing
So
up.
that policy was spearheaded by the city clerk.
We're good.
So I'll make the remarks brief. This is coming up again, per administration's understanding that city council was interested in considering it. The policy in front of you has very limited changes to when it was considered back in summer 2020. We want to emphasize that all regular council meetings will still always have public commenting as we've had traditionally via announced and announced delegations. So that does not change this at all. Going back to the comparisons that were drawn back in 2020, that was brought in front of you back in the summer. We did not redo the comparisons. I really do think that any of the public commenting policies in municipalities have remained static over the last 2.5 years. And so again, I think the overall the takeaway issue is that it still is widely used by a whole cross-section of municipalities across the state. Primarily, an example in the matrix is Norwood, which is in Stanley County, as you all know. So finally, I guess we wanted to leave council with understanding that we just wanted to gauge council interest in the policy or parts of the policy. This doesn't need to be adopted wholesale. You can look at it more, you can consider it, bring it back. You can strike certain parts of it if you want to. Staff would probably respectfully ask that you look at it and not throw it out wholesale, but consider it. And that I think it could bring, or staff would recommend that it would bring a little bit more order and business and decorum to sessions, and also have a more organized nature to how the public addresses council and how you can consider things. And any specific parts of the policy we could enact after the fact, should you decide to adopt it or approve it tonight.
Your Honor, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So first of all, thank you so much for working really diligent and hard on this. I got a question though, a couple things. The first one is the 3-minute rule. Suppose we have a situation, and through your research you may have encountered this, the way municipalities handle it. If we would adopt something like this, only giving residents 3 minutes to speak, and they absolutely cannot get all the information they need to get out in 3 minutes, does council or does the city attorney, does somebody here have the ability to open it up and give them more time, or does the clock shut off at 3 minutes and they got to be quiet?
That would be up to council to adopt any kind of arrangements or specific methods of doing that. There are all kinds of ways that, as you can see with, the comparison research done, anything from egg timers to the overhead monitors of, PowerPoint flashing. Some of the larger municipalities, you're probably aware, will shut off mics. We wouldn't do that. We could do a warning, and then if council agreed to it, you're the body who is considering this. I'm going to go out on a limb. I just think staff would say it's a council option and decision, and that, if you decided that what a particular commenter was saying was that important and that vital, you could definitely override that if you wanted to. These would be council's set of rules and procedures for that. And so council could make those kind of variations, strike-throughs, edits, considerations ahead of time. Or you can even write in statements that you would consider exemptions or, in limited circumstances, why you would increase the time for a commenter. Just off the top of my head.
What now? What'd you say?
Staff would only speak.
Oh, well, anybody knows I'm not a fan of long meetings, so I appreciate that.
I too appreciate your hard work on this policy, you and whatever other staff members were involved in that, because it's very much needed with some of the things that we've been experiencing lately. But I will say, I like all the elements except the 3-minute topic.
Me too.
I've viewed other governing bodies across the state, and me personally, I think it's received well when people come into the council chambers here in the city of Albemarle and can openly speak, without a buzzer or egg beater or a timer or something going off. I think we can easily. We don't have a lot of. It's very seldom that we have a lot of public outcry where we really need to even worry about the time. We might need to put a time limit on ourselves up here around council at times, but from the public, I don't think that's really a big problem. Now, I think if it do become a problem, we could modify what you have here to say we reserve the right to, put time limits in place if we have a.
Wait a minute, come up here. Come on up to the mic.
Yeah.
From my experience, when I was in New Bern, it was the same way. It was an optional thing. Most agenda items, most cases, you don't have everybody speaking, and if somebody needs to speak for 5 or 6 minutes, not a big deal. It was really for the mayor and council to determine when they came in if there was kind of a full house and you knew it was going to be a big night, not allowing one person to kind of hijack a meeting and just keep going. And they would put that 3-minute, and can't remember if it's 3 or 4 minute, but they put that in place at that time to kind of speed things along
Yeah.
a little bit.
Yep.
Ms. Birch, do you have any problem if we adopted something like Mr. Robinson was talking about, where council could decide that night whether to put a limit on it?
No, I think that's kind of a happy medium. We can simply revise the language to say something. Council reserves the right to limit the, I guess, speaking time of each participant if there's a large crowd that night. So I can work on that language, and if council wants to approve it tonight, we can either bring it back for council, or council can approve it with understanding that staff will make that update.
Mr. Robinson?
You know, also in number 2 there where it says sign up sheet, it says they must be here 30 minutes before the start of the meeting by listing his or her name, address, and comment topic. I think anytime that we have a letter sent in from a resident, I think it's important just for transparency that if we're going to read that letter and adopt it in open session, that we ask the resident or whoever's sending the letter for the name, address in regards to the specific topic they're talking about.
Other comments, questions?
I like not putting the time limit on it. I mean, I believe the same way. I mean, some of us probably have been in meetings where we were given 3 minutes or 6 minutes or whatever. So I like the idea that we don't put it in there, but we reserve it, the right to. But I think people feeling free to be able to say what they want to say and how they want to say it goes a long way.
To Mr. Robinson's point too, I think we as a council, and Councilmember Townsend said it too, I think that we have to be very respectful of staff this time also, because we all, they've got to be back here at 8 o'clock in the morning and ready to go and do their job. So I think we control the times of these meetings. I think that would benefit everybody.
So I'm hearing, is council okay with approving this with the condition to change it, that we can adopt a time period that night or at the meeting if we so choose? Is council good with the rest of it?
Yeah.
I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Aldridge, second by Councilmember Townsend. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Number 26, consider adoption of the budget planning calendar.
You got a date wrong in there. February 9th, 2023, I think that should be. Is that correct, Michael? It says February 9th, 2022, but I'm thinking that should be 2023.
You're correct.
Okay.
Anyone have any other conflicts?
Well, I mean, looking forward, I don't think so, but last year or 2 years ago, we had one meeting, and I don't know that this is even needed, where we used or where we had outgoing and ingoing at the same time. Am I dreaming that?
No, I was there.
Okay,
Yeah, in 20.
it was in 20?
Yeah.
That was one of them sessions like at the church or something, right?
It was at the senior center.
Senior center.
Yeah, at the senior
Yeah.
center, yeah.
And I don't know if, because we're going to have some new folks on council. Is that something that we need to consider? I mean, I don't know. Instead of meeting October 18th, then I know we got to look at First Tryon, and I mean, I know we've got to look at their schedule.
It was beneficial to me to be included.
Well, and what I'm saying is it there? Yeah, there you go. It's beneficial.
Yeah.
And should we put off that October 18th one until after the election and be even before swearing in, but to have more input? I'm just throwing that out there. But I think from your standpoint,
It was, you've got to buy into it. And, I'd been in before, so I knew
Right.
what was going on. These folks are coming in cold turkey.
right.
And they're going to have no idea over the next 12 months what in the world's going on. for the
So your
most part.
recommendation is to move it sometime after November 8th and let Mr. Ferris work with First Tryon.
Well, and I'm just throwing that out there because I just think that just period.
I agree.
I mean,
Yeah.
but you would want to do it probably, you'd need to do it after November 8th, but before then December the 5th or whatever that.
I think it would depend on first try.
Well, but you would want to do it before, after the election, but before swearing in of new folks, so that you can, before the December 5th.
Was that the date they gave first time?
No, I did vet that date with first try.
The 18th.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, it can change. So I guess the question is, I guess last time, maybe it worked out that way where it was that post-election, pre-swearing in, where they're invited. I mean, is the goal to wait until the election is settled and have it in that interim period? So outgoing and incoming are overlapping. I mean, I don't know that was the intention last time. It's the way it worked out, but
I think it's good. I mean, I think.
I think it's good to have the incoming. I mean,
Yeah, incoming and give outgoing the chance. I mean, if they want to come, fine. If they don't want to come, that's fine.
Because
That's their choice.
But it would be good for the incoming to
Yeah.
definitely sit and listen, because they're going to be deer in headlights.
So if council's good with all the other dates, we'll ask Mr. Ferris to get with First Trine and come back to us with that date. Okay. Number 27, Information Parks and Recreation has received a Juvenile Crime Prevention Council grant. Ms. Kaiser, you want to say something?
Well, my peers in the back said I had 3 minutes, so,
That's exactly
and
right.
they're timing
Timing
me,
you.
so.
We're not.
You've already used up
Just,
15
it won't
seconds.
take me 3 minutes, I promise you that. Just wanted to give you guys information that Parks and Recreation received a grant in the amount of about $38,000 from the Department of Justice, from the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council. So it's the building, we call it the Building Blocks Program, that's going to support school students, youth at risk, and those that youth at risk for becoming juvenile offenders, and those that are already in the juvenile justice system. So just wanted to let you guys know that.
Great.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Congratulations. Council, with the considering the time, do you need a close round session or not? We move closed session.
Let's go to close.
I'll entertain a motion that we go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143, 31811, A3, 4, and 6, to consult with attorney, economic development, and personnel.
So move.
Second.
So,
Motion, we go back into open session.
So moved.
Motion by
Everybody.
Dry, second by Hughes. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Coming out of closed session, we have nothing to announce. Council have anything else to come before council? I'll entertain a motion that we recess until next Monday night, the 12th, at 6 p.m. at the Waddell Center.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Aldridge, second by Councilmember Townsend. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.